Many Nigerians have expressed disappointment over the postponement of the 2019 general elections. From the president himself, to the main contending political parties, down to the ordinary citizens, voters, and even INEC itself, everyone wishes that this process had gone on uninterrupted. But 12 hours after the announcement of the postponement, tempers are beginning to cool, and Nigerians across the board are beginning to look at the possible values this postponement can bring to our electoral system generally, and the 2019 general elections in particular. As the Nigerian Television Authority reopens its Nigeria Decides studio, this is the course we shall be charting. Welcome to this segment of Nigeria Decides. I am Femi Okeowo. Now, 5 hours to the commencement of the 2019 general elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission, the election management body headed by Professor Mahmood Yakubu, announced the postponement of the election. The commission attributed logistics as a major challenge that necessitated the decision to shift the polls by 1 week. The INEC chairman said the postponement will afford the commission the opportunity to identify the challenges in order to maintain the quality of our elections. However, Nigerians have continued to react to the postponement of the elections both individually and as groups. In his reaction, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed disappointment over the election postponement, and in a statement personally signed by the president regretted that despite the long notice given and preparations both locally and internationally, the Independent National Electoral Commission postponed the presidential and National Assembly elections within hours of its commencement. Some political parties, too, have reacted to the postponement of the general elections. They include the All Progressive Congress, People's Democratic Party, Coalition of United Political Parties, among others, have also expressed their reservations over the shift in the date of the elections. But INEC is now meeting with stakeholders to brief them on the development that led to the postponement of this election by 1 week. So, what is going to play out at the meeting? Are campaigns resuming again since the elections are now postponed? Is it not possible for INEC to proceed with the elections in the states that have taken full delivery of the electoral materials? What about the security of materials already distributed to local government areas in some states? Is this the first time the election of this magnitude is being postponed in Nigeria? These are some of the questions we intend to put forward to our guests as we discuss the developments pertaining to the general elections. Again, this is Nigeria Decides on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and it's indeed my pleasure to bring you this session along with the great analysts we have here in the studio. Now let me introduce them one after the other. Very close to me, to my left, is Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. He calls himself a teacher, but he's a researcher and public affairs analyst. You're welcome, Abdurrahman.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have someone who has been neck deep in all this, Ezinwa Nwagu, Chairman, Partners and Electoral Reforms Organization. It's our pleasure to have you on Nigeria Decides.
Thanks, Partners for Electoral Reform.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. And then we also have a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo. Welcome to Nigeria Decides studio.
Good afternoon, viewers.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's kick off this segment first with our discussion. We will, before we kick off this discussion, we will take this statement by the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, on the postponement of the general elections.
The postponement of the general elections is a major challenge that necessitated the decision to shift the polls by 1 week. The INEC chairman said the postponement will afford the commission the opportunity to identify the challenges in the date of the elections.
of the implementation of its logistics and operational plan, and the determination to conduct free, fair, and credible elections, the Commission came to the conclusion that proceeding with the election as scheduled is no longer feasible. Consequently, the Commission has decided to reschedule the Presidential and National Assembly elections to Saturday, 23rd February 2019. Furthermore, the Governorship, State House of Assembly, and Federal Capital Territory Area Council elections are rescheduled to Saturday, 9th March 2019. This will afford the Commission the opportunity to address identified challenges in order to maintain the quality of our elections. This was a difficult decision for the Commission to take, but necessary for the successful delivery of elections and the consolidation of our democracy. The Commission will meet with key stakeholders to update them on this development at 2 p.m. on Saturday, 16th February 2019 at the Abuja International Conference Center.
Yes, that was the announcement that brought us to where we are now, the postponement of the general elections by INEC Chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. But before, again, we still have one of our correspondents right there at the heat of activities. Now, if there are any activities, but let's join Mayor Ogidi at the International Conference Center, which was supposed to be the collation center, headquarters of the collation center for the presidential elections. Let's hear you, Mayor Ogidi. Let's have a picture of what is happening at the...
Thank you very much, Femi Okyowo. You have a very informed team of analysts there to give us perspective to the postponement of the elections. Here I am at the International Conference Center, venue for the scheduled meeting of INEC and other stakeholders following the postponement of the general elections a week ahead. Yes, the diplomatic community is here. The chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has also arrived and also cited the former president of the Zambia, Ropia, Buazani Banda, and a host of others. Behind me, you can also see some international and domestic observers, security men. They're all waiting for the arrival of the chairman of INEC and his team. So let's briefly hear from me, the chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, Chief Peter Ame, who is the chairman of all the political parties in the country. Of course, they are 91. So, sir, let's briefly hear from you. How do you see the postponement of the elections?
I think that this is not the first time. In 2011, we were already voting when the election was postponed. In 2015, our election was postponed, and we still went ahead to have a perfect election. If you have given people a job to do, and there are logistic issue that will undermine the credibility of the election, I think it is the INEC, the Commission took a right stand. It was an emergency thing. It's something that will put the nation in a way that people were confused as of yesterday night from 12 midnight to daybreak. But this had happened. Way forward is for us to all sit down with the Commission, sit down with the international, the observer and the domestic observer, and fashion out how properly this election will be conducted as a date already set aside. I don't think there's any need for Nigerians to be overheated at this point, or for us to put ourselves under immense pressure, because I know that the electoral umpire is overburdened. And I think that's why I want to stand by the West panel report, that it should be unbundled. And we should have the people who register political party. Do you know that the electoral umpire was even responsible for distributing permanent voters' card? These are cumbersome work, even delineation. The work is so cumbersome that makes the electoral, they do legal activities. So we should have an electoral umpire that only concentrate on the conduct of election in this country. It will make it easier, it will make our election effective, and it will give it credibility.
So what is your advice to your supporters and other supporters of the elections?
Yes, the parties were one of the major issues that the parties had was that they were not consulted, because we're not just stakeholders, we're critical stakeholders. Because without political party in Nigeria, you cannot conduct election. You can't even participate in an election because we have no independent candidacy. Political parties are the mainstream in this stakeholders process. So the parties were really angry. The cause was coming in daybreak. They were angry that no, there was no consultation. Why would the INEC chairman take this decision? But I also reaffirm and tell them that there's a commission already set aside, and they had with the responsibility to take charge of how elections are conducted, and they sat for hours and so that instead of running a staggered election and putting our credibility of our elections in jeopardy, it's better to do a whole election at once so that the international community who are here to see us, the African nation who are here to see the giant of Africa conduct a credible election and go back home to their community, please, that a credible election has been conducted in Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure talking to you. Femi, okay, well, that's the situation here, and this is exactly 11 minutes after 2. Any moment from now, the chairman, they're already here anyway. They are the situation room, maybe having some discussions behind closed doors. Then we come to the center, the podium, you guys can see is set. So we were going to update you as the events unfold. Thank you very much, and you're looking good.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mie. We certainly will be back with you there. That is the much talked about stakeholders meeting, which is going on now. So many decisions would be reached from that meeting. But then we must continue at this point to look at the feelings of Nigerians, and starting from the number one citizen, he actually has expressed his feelings about this postponement. And indeed, like we said at the beginning of this segment, our guest here too will be talking about perceptions and feelings. But then let's go first to the first citizen of Nigeria who has sent in his reaction to this postponement, President Muhammadu Buhari.
Gentlemen, I stand before you to read a statement by the President Muhammadu Buhari, on the current national situation. And this is the statement. The President says, I am deeply disappointed that despite the long notice given and our preparations, both locally and internationally, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, postponed the presidential and the National Assembly elections within hours of its commitment. Many Nigerians have traveled to various locations to exercise their right to vote, and international observers are gathered. INEC themselves have given assurances day after day, almost hour after hour, that they are in complete preparedness for the elections. We and all our citizens believed them. This administration has ensured that we do not interfere in any way with the work of INEC, except to ensure that all funds were released to the Commission. The President continues, we now urge INEC to ensure not only that materials already distributed are safe and do not get into wrong hands, but that everything is done to avoid the lapses that resulted in this unfortunate postponement and ensure a free and fair election on the rescheduled dates. President says, while I affirm my strong commitment to the independence, neutrality of the electoral empire and the sanctity of the electoral process and ballot, I urge all political stakeholders and Nigerians to continue to rally around INEC at this trying national moment in our democratic journey. The President says, I therefore appeal to all Nigerians to refrain from all civil disorder and remain peaceful, patriotic, and united to ensure that no force or conspiracy derailed our democratic development. The President concludes by saying, I have decided to move back to Abuja to ensure that the 1400 hours meeting called by INEC and stakeholders is successful. Daura, February 6, 2019. Signed, Muhammadu Buhari, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari, in his reaction there, through his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Garba Shehu. And now we take you here to the studio. And just like the president has done, just like key personalities have done, and again we're going to hear some of them, the political parties and organizations on this segment, let's allow our personalities here who have been following the issues to tell us what they feel. Let me start with someone who, as he walked into the studio, one of the analysts thought he was someone of an object of sympathy. And I said to myself, if you sympathize with him, then what would you do to INEC? This is the chairman of the Partners for Electoral Reforms. When I was introducing him earlier, and you all know, because he's very regular in analysis of electoral matters, he's been neck deep in all this. So, Mr. Ezenwa Onwago, let me allow you to speak for yourself, and by extension, speak for the constituency you have so painstakingly represented in the last few years, indeed in the last some decades, about what's happening at this time in Nigeria.
Well, I think Jide and Abdulrahman they are also investors in this democratic enterprise, and so they can understand what it would mean for observers who have deployed, for people who have invested both time, resources, emotions, intellect to ensuring that this process gets to the right. So I think that across board, the sentiment of disappointment, of shock, it need not be rehashed anymore. For me, is to now get away from that. We are in a state of national electoral emergency, in my view. And when you have an emergency, you do not do blame games at that time. You don't start recriminating. What you need to do is to begin to see how you get out of it. And the picture that came to me is when you hear things like Hurricane Katrina. What you see is that citizens immediately rally around, the institutions of state, support them to make sure that the issues that confront them are surmounted. So we want to have an election. We have had a prolonged labor. We must prevent abortion, and that simply means that all of us at this point in time must get out from that despondency, get out from the feeling of disappointment and shock and embarrassment, and put INEC where it has to on daily basis, if you like. Put out to Nigerian people where we are in the next 7 days to say, look, let's understand transparently, honestly, which of the states did we have challenges? What are we doing now? So that it doesn't get to Thursday we're expecting another press conference to start telling us on daily basis as citizens, media, everybody. We need to all put our hands together at this time to make sure that we get out of these bad pangs and deliver this baby. The joy of delivering that baby will take away the shame, will take away the embarrassment, will take away the pains and the disappointment that we have seen.
Oman, your thoughts as we commence this segment of the analysis?
Well, I want to commend INEC.
Yes.
I want to commend INEC in the sense that we have a tradition in this country that we have emergencies, as he rightly pointed out.
Okay.
And the next thing you continue to hear is we're on top of the situation until the situation gets out of control.
My apologies, please. Let me take one of our reporters who is on the streets of Abuja, Sani Abacha Way, in Nnamdi Odigbo there. He's going to be talking to us about what it looks like on the streets. Nnamdi, I hope you can hear me. I see you are touching your connections. What has it been on the street? You expected a full day today, but let's share with you what you have experienced so far.
Like you rightly said, we're currently somewhere in the center of the city. Precisely, I'm somewhere, if you just look behind me, that's the popular Sani Abacha Way, which leads from the city center, from the central business district onto Utako and the Gwarimpa axis of Abuja. Well, it's a picture of the picture you have that we've just shown you is typical of Abuja during the holidays. In fact, this is vintage Abuja during the holidays. But of course, it's to be expected, and this is in response to the announcement at the early hours of today by the Independent National Electoral Commission calling for the postponement of the exercise. Earlier today, we brought you an update on this where we gave you, or we did say how sleepy the town was, and I can tell you that not much has changed since then. But of course, as the day progresses, we expect that activities will pick up in pace. And of course, again, this is the response to the announcement by INEC. We have had time to drive around the city center and some suburbs of Abuja, and it's the same picture everywhere. People are taking the opportunity of the announcement to perhaps stay indoor, to perhaps stay with loved ones and just stay indoor, and it's a holiday for them, as it were. We went to we moved earlier we moved from Wuse to Tako and then on to Games Village and towards the National Stadium. And Femi, indeed, it's all the same. Everywhere we've had to go to in the last couple of hours, it's been quiet, it's been calm. People took the announcement with a mix. Yes, Femi, sorry, did you just ask a question?
Where you are standing, Nnamdi, is not too far from the very popular Wuse market. And these are people who don't joke with their business. The market is still not full, as you have stated here. But does that mean that people did not get to know about this postponement, or they still think that there won't be movement, even in spite of the postponement, which is why there's not much activities going on in a place like Wuse market at this time of the day?
The popular Wuse market, of course, like you just said. I mean, earlier on when we went there, it was almost empty. That was in the early hours of today, sometime around 8 a.m. to noon. There was about 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. I beg your pardon. But we were there just a couple of minutes ago before we moved on to Sani Abacha Way, and we did notice some improvement. Of course, some stores and shops have opened to customers, and we did notice a couple of prospective customers driving into the market to make a few purchases. I want to say that before the end of today, hopefully it will pick up, not as much as it would be during the normal working days, but of course we expect some sort of improvement in activities in Wuse market before the day ends.
I have noticed the level of security on the streets. Since the postponement, would it mean that the security personnel who were out there deployed to check movement left the place for people to feel free?
Not at all, Femi. While we were driving along Modubelo Way, that's actually close to the city center, the Central Business District, we did notice a couple of police vehicles parked at strategic points and junctions. In fact, if I would just ask the camera to pan a bit to my right, you would notice the presence of some policemen down this way that leads to Zone 3, Zone 4. But they are quite a distance away, but if you look carefully, you see a couple of police vehicles parked that way. Well, if we also did drive around Wuse 2, and we noticed a couple of police vehicles parked at strategic junctions. I mean, of course, it's Abuja. It's always been a quiet city, you know, and of course it's usual to see police presence in major junctions and areas. Of course, they are still there. But, you know, at the early hours of this morning, just before the announcements by INEC made the rounds, we had serious police presence in major junctions. That is reduced a bit, but of course we do know that following the announcement, the police would also have to go back and re-strategize and perhaps make new arrangements in anticipation of next week's election. Femi.
In the studio here, we shall be talking about materials that have already been deployed. You didn't notice any polling center that had a semblance of activity, a preemptive activity, so to say, that had not packed up by the time you visited?
Femi, not at all, not at all. By the early hours of this morning, when we came out initially, we visited some designated polling centers. We did notice and we did confirm earlier in the day too that the INEC ad hoc officers were not on ground. Of course, this was in response to the postponement. News had already made the rounds that there will be no elections, that the elections won't be holding. So I guess there was no reason for materials to be deployed from local government centers to polling units, and that of course would explain the absence of INEC ad hoc officers at designated polling stations. But of course it's sometime around it's sometime around 3:30 now. If INEC ad hoc officers had perhaps visited some sites in the morning, they would have left by this time.
Thank you very much, Nnamdi. As soon as you can get additional information you want to share with us, I'm sure we'll join you. For now, we return to the studio, and Abdurrahman was giving us his immediate thoughts.
Thank you very much, yes. Mr. Femi. You see, we have a situation in this country, and it's a tradition where people that are charged with delicate responsibilities, we continue to lie to the public that we're on top of the situation now and then until the situation degenerates and get out of hand. We're not saying that this postponement has no impact on the lives of the citizens, especially those that have closed their shops, those that traveled far and wide to cast their ballot and then return back to their place of work. Having said that, we need to commend INEC, because election is threatening, is a precarious enterprise in Nigeria, especially the interest it normally generates. So that the confidence that is needed in the process of delivery, once it is lacking, you're going to find yourself in a deep mess. So for me, for INEC to have that very particular push to say, okay, our plans are not falling in place as we envisage, and that we needed some time to sort them out to ensure that we bring confidence into the process and we're able to deliver, so that peacefully people can choose, and then announcement will be made in terms of returns of those that have won the election. I think it is something that is commendable. People are expressing that this may because of the duration. People thought you could just, third world country are places that are difficult to plan because what it takes to plan most of the times are not available. And then in terms of election, the stakes are high in Nigeria. As INEC is planning, so the political parties are planning, so the politicians are planning. So it is all about who is doing what to beat the system. And if that is the case, logistics are critical in terms of election delivery in this country. Mm-hmm. And then considering the challenge, for instance, I was speaking with somebody, with a friend who is in Taraba, and he said, there are places that, okay, from the state capital, it will take like 8-9 hours to get to. By the time you get to those areas again, the other polling unit, it will take additional 8 hours to get to a lot of them. So people look at logistics from moving electoral materials from the INEC headquarters or to state, to local government secretariat, it's beyond that. It's a whole lot of activities that are daunting. So I want to commend INEC for at least taking responsibility to say that, look, that is the humility I've seen, humility in learning. That, okay, what we are doing, we thought is going to take us to the destination, but we thought we will not get to that destination. But before we get ourselves into crisis and get Nigeria into crisis, let us halt the process. Collectively, we review the process, and then we move on. I think it's something that we should equally commend because it assists to refine the process and infuse confidence in the process.
While agreeing with Ezenwa's position that we should look forward, and actually that's what we said when we were opening the studio, and Abdurrahman's position that INEC was humble enough, Nigerians think that humility did not come early enough. And everyone is saying, yes, we didn't have an inkling into this until it was just a few hours to elections. While we want to move forward, can't we also look at what made it so close to election before we knew that we couldn't go on?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a very sad day for me as an individual. We can't continue this way. It's just not possible. 3 electoral cycles and we are giving justification for postponement. It doesn't look good on us. It just doesn't tally. I mean, we made excuses in 2011, midway. I was in Lagos observing the election when Professor Ataru Jaga at 12 noon announced the postponement of the election. In 2015, we postponed 1 week on February 7th. The election was supposed to be February 14th. We postponed 1 week. We were on the road doing sensitization and all of that. We were actually traveling from Lagos to Ibadan for another round of sensitization when the announcement came. Fine. 1 week is even good enough because there have not been deployment. But this time, full deployment has been done at enormous cost to the country and to individual organizations that are part of this process. I ask, who compensates civil society organizations who are using donor funds to do this? Who compensates that average person whose wedding or whose social events have been planned for today but had to be rescheduled for next week? Now that person has to reschedule. Who compensates those foreign observers who had already bought their return ticket? They have planned to the last letter how much this exercise is going to cost them. Now they have to review. The campaigners, the electorate, I mean, the political parties and candidates, who compensates them for extra funds they will have to pay for political advice and all of that. I am not against postponement. I am all for it. When you know something is not going right, you know, like somebody said, you cannot go in the wrong direction, open to get to the right way. If you know you are proceeding in the wrong direction, you backtrack. But INEC was giving us assurance and reassurances till Thursday, even till yesterday morning. I was on another program, it was a voter sensitization program yesterday morning with a deputy director in INEC. And And we were encouraging Nigerians to go look for their PVCs, get ready, and assurances were still being given as of yesterday morning. For me, we need to know the entire thing that went wrong, what actually went wrong. Beyond the blanket statement that logistics, what kind of logistics? If we know, Mr. Moderator, we are 20 years in this Fourth Republic. We have had, this is our 6th electoral cycle. 6th. 99, 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015. Now the 6th one. What have we learned from the failures of the past? If you fail to learn from the past, you are not going to progress. We know the challenges are there. We can't continue to make excuses for this administration or for the electoral management body all the time. The saddening thing for me is that if at the beginning of this week we have said, all things considered, we have election project plan, we have election management system in place, we have a strategy plan, we have so many things. In fact, this is about the most planned election. This election, INEC announced the date without any pressure 2 years ago on March 9, 2017. And on January 9, 2018, it gave us timeline and schedule of activities. And the law is on the side of INEC. When a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, things are not falling in place, look at your election project plan. Is it funding? Is it vendors that are disappointing you? The red flag will have started showing. Okay. Now, the commission has not about 150 days and not later than 30 days to conduct this election. Yeah. Which that means that if the election could not hold in January or February, it could hold in March, it could hold, election could hold up until April 28, 2019. So it wasn't as if the commission was under any pressure that if you change your date, then heavens will fall. But if it has been done in a timely manner, that will have saved the day for me. Because then the resources that have been deployed, human, material, financial resource, will have been husbanded, will have been kept. And then we will have cut the loss. As it is now, all those poor workers that have been deployed, are you not going to pay them?
Indeed, that's the area I want to go to next. Even President Muhammadu Buhari expressed concern, particularly about the security materials that have already been distributed and deployed. What do you think INEC will be doing particularly about that area, so that they don't, as the President suggested, they don't fall into wrong hands?
We should be feeling a sense of shame as a country that our materials are domiciled in the vaults of the central bank of our country.
Thank you.
There is something shameful about that. Yeah. Okay? So you have 73 political parties who are expected to go to the CBN with INEC officials and follow the material, taking inventory of what left the CBN and then follow it to INEC and all of that. If the materials are not used, those political parties are not on holidays. They simply go back to INEC and say, return the thing where you brought it from. See, the challenge I have is that I lifted myself to the point where I'm not going to stay on this recrimination.
Okay.
There is election audit will come. Yeah. You are in the path of having an election. See, sometimes at the risk of immodest, I think that we adopt this self-righteous attitude. Once it's not us organizing, then anybody organizing
does not know how to
do it. And what do I mean by that? We can all prepare to come to this studio to have this program. Just one wire. With everything you have done, can put us out of here for 1 week, and you'll be tracing it. We're not making excuses. What you do at that time is not to say, Mr. Femi, you are the one who should have found that wire. You are the what the people want at that time is to see us here. Yes. So we want an election, 2019 election. We have not held it yet. The reasons for which we are not held it are disappointing, they are frustrating, they are embarrassing.
So you really think that Nigerians should not be apprehensive or afraid about those materials that have already gone out?
I just told you how it is done.
They will return them.
Wait, you as a political party, you follow a process. If you don't go and follow that material from CBN, it's your own challenge. You are supposed to follow the material. That's what we do. Even civil society organizations in off-cycle elections also deployed observers to go and watch materials leave central bank. Now they are in the hands of the electoral officials.
Okay.
So if they are not used, you do what is called reverse logistics. Reverse logistics is, we didn't use it. Did you take inventory of what you took? Can you bring that inventory and show that what you took is what you also returned? My challenge, I'm not saying that we are not paid, but what do we want now? We want an election. So I've been everywhere in the last few hours. Oh, the country, we are ashamed of all of that. So if I say that, I've not helped this process in any way, even though I can say it very well. But I've chosen not to say that. I've chosen to say that we have 1 week. When we have this election, God help us, the election goes very well. It has possibility of removing the embarrassment. And that's how Nigerians are. If you play the first match and you lose, they say sack the coach. If you play the second one and win, they say, oh no, there is no better person than this coach, and all of that. We need to bring that mix into the conversation. The despondency is palpable. Okay, we're already dealing with people saying they don't want to vote. You know, this thing is not. But what I have seen in the last few days is that there's excitement. People want to vote. There's enthusiasm
possibly an added determination. Have you seen that in people? An added determination to say, oh, they don't want us to vote, and we would vote.
Thank you.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I've seen it. You see, that is what we're talking about. Once the process is working, it gives people confidence to exercise their rights. And somebody will tell you, oh, somebody sent me a text message. He said, well, you know, I'm in the opposition and I know the party you are supporting. My PVC is back to the fridge, is chilling, waiting for Saturday to come, which means that he is determined to cast his vote and that he was going to do it, whether there is postponement or no postponement. But what we are saying here is, with due respect to my friend Jide Ojo, what do we want? Is it election for election's sake, or that we want transparent election that will guarantee peace? We've had election for election's sake in the past, where elections were conducted, but the outcome led to crisis and conflict as well as killings. And we've had elections in the past that people did not take to the street, let alone burning of government properties. Now, elections, the 2015 election was postponed, but the postponement did not even impact the determination and the outcome that the people sought. So it is not about postponing it. So what we, in terms of logistics that have gone into it, well, we are pained by it, but there is a simple adage that what is used to stop a war is not more than what war actually consumes. So if we know that if we don't get the process right, it was going to land us where we don't want to be, it is part of the review and the learning as far as I'm concerned. And that is why I said I like the humility of INEC, because they are humble enough to say that, okay, we could not deliver as promised, but we want to take a step backward and then meet with the stakeholders, review the process, and then we go for it. And that is exactly what Ezenwa pointed out in his own comment. Because at the end of it all, by the time we get it right, all Nigerians will come to the street and jubilate. And if we get it wrong, it's INEC. So you don't even allow people to start pushing around when you know that at the end of it all, it is your monkey, because the responsibility is going to be on you and the onus will be on you. So as far as I'm concerned, we've come to the point in Nigeria that we need to be humble in whatever we're doing, to accept that, look, we cannot do it the way we want to do it, because it entails review. And if you are reviewing, you will see the lapses that, okay, you can mitigate. There are lapses that you cannot mitigate. There are lapses that will require some time. There are other challenges that may take 2 days, 3 days to sort out.
Good.
So I think it is part of the development we are witnessing.
Those lapses that we can mitigate are the areas we shall be looking at when we return. But this break is to take more feelers from outside, and it's going to start with the chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC. We get the reactions from that area.
Primary school would have been beehive of activities at this time if the election was holding. It is Unit 1 of Ward 9 where the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Comrade Adams Oshomole, is actually supposed to vote.
I am not really shocked. I am disappointed. I am disgusted. And I think my party members are totally frustrated because nobody have any inkling that this election was not going to go on. And as you can see from my compound, we spent the past couple of days, mobilizing our agents, our supervisors, everybody that we are expected to put at the various polling booths to make sure that they get there on time and that they have everything they need to be able to carry out their function. And this involves a huge logistic cost. The political parties should behave responsibly. In unison, we should condemn in the strongest term possible this rude shock that INEC has subjected Nigerians to. And it's not just about the political parties, it's essentially about the Nigerian people. But as a party, we have huge costs, both in terms of time, materials, risk. People have traveled. Some state government declare holidays so that people can, those who are in the cities can move to their villages, because most Nigerians like to vote where they are registered. They can only vote where they are registered, and many prefer to register in their villages. I'm here in my village. The president is in his town in Daura. Everybody I called VP is also in Lagos where he registered. Everybody is in his place, just to comply with INEC guidelines.
The electorates who have relocated from their places of work to their polling areas, no doubt, will not spare INEC for this failure. But Nigerians will have to bear and hope that the commission lives up to its responsibility.
Look at the foreign observers who have traveled, who have budgeted their time, they have booked their tickets, and so on, who are in Nigeria. They are not here at our government is not paying them, at least the serious ones. What do you tell them? I appeal to Nigerians to insist that this election takes place, to insist that it is free and fair, and one way to ensure that this is done is not to be disappointed as to refuse to turn out next Saturday, because good things may sometimes not come easy. But our determination to sustain democracy should not be at the mercy of anybody, including anyone who has mismanaged his own part. Because INEC will come and go, Nigeria remains.
The presidential and National Assembly election will now hold next Saturday, the 23rd of February, in Uzaire, Edo State. David Ire, NTA News.
Now, the All Progressive Congress, APC, has also condemned, as a party, has also condemned the postponement of the elections and urged its teeming supporters to be patient and determined. In a statement by the Director of Strategic Communications of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Festus Keyamo, said the party received the announcement by the Independent National Electoral Commission of its decision to postpone the elections with great disappointment and disillusionment. Festus Keyamo says President Muhammadu Buhari had since cooperated fully with INEC by ensuring everything it demanded to conduct free and fair elections were promptly made available to it. He therefore hopes that INEC will remain neutral and impartial in this process, with the allegations that this postponement has been orchestrated, according to him, in collusion with the main opposition party. So we continue our studio discussions. Those are reactions from political parties. but Nigerians too have been reacting, and we have a summation of some of their reactions as we continue our analysis in the studio. They said a problem once known is half solved. Is it likely that we know the true problems that created this postponement? Because we keep talking about moving forward, yes, but can we know these problems so as to overcome them?
Exactly my point. INEC hasn't come clean. INEC said identified to give room for identified challenges. Did he tell us what those identified challenges are? We have heard that explanation. Maybe about now, at the International Conference Center, is owing up to those identified challenges. Because, you see, why I'm pained, and I have been like a one-man riot squad for the commission, even not being a staff, not getting paid. I have done, if you read my column in The Punch on Wednesdays, educating people to go and be part of this. So how do I convince people again? You know, once beaten, twice shy. And it has becoming the new normal. I hope in 2023 we'll not back to the same, let us give them benefit of that and all. Because if we said something went wrong in 2011, something went wrong in 2015, something is going wrong now. When are we going to really because all those foreign observers that have come have a budget earmarked for this exercise. Now, they have to overstay. They are coming to Nigeria at huge cost to them.
Mr. Ojo,
so,
yes, we have all the justification to brood over this.
No, the point
but can we move? Is it possible to still, at the end of the day, applaud a job well done? Is it possible?
It's possible. We did that in 2011, in 2015. We applauded the job well done, and we said we are making incremental progress. But you see, the point being made is INEC owes us better explanation. Yes, logistics. Because what this has done is to give the rumor mill a lot to chew. A lot of people, I've been on a platform in the morning where people say, INEC could have gone ahead with election in 28 states. Who gave that? I've read the text of the press statement by INEC chairman. He didn't talk about maybe they have full complement of materials in 28 states and only in few states. He didn't. So we need to know those identified challenges. When we know, we can be more sympathetic to the cause of INEC. And again, what are measures we are putting in place to make sure that we are not continuously and continually repeating the same mistakes? Because it's about the integrity of the institution. When you want to build confidence and trust in an institution, its word must be its bound. You cannot, 2 days to election, look at what the Mr. President himself said in his statement, that INEC gave us assurance and reassurances. If you see, many media houses are playing the tape of even as far as Thursday, where the chairman was telling foreign observers that they were ready, they've crossed the T's, they've dotted the I's. So what went wrong in the last 24 hours to warrant this? We need to know. If we do know, all of us are human. I mean, the best of planning can go awry. At individual, at family, at organizational level, we have had to deal with emergencies. And we will be more sympathetic. But to be economical with information at this point, particularly official information, is not going to help us. And that is what I am demanding of the commission. And that moving forward, this does not become the new normal for us. Because when people are coming to your country to say we want to observe, they cannot continue to have a budget for contingency that is equal to the amount that they would originally have spent if the exercise has been very smooth. So this is it. And then the issue of compensation. Who pays? Who compensates for the distrust that because now we have to reactivate our voter education and mobilization to tell those young students who constitute 51% of the voting population that all hope is not lost, that we can still get it right with this postponement. So it will take a lot, because people will tell you, but you said that, Egbon, you said that last week, you said that in 2015. What has changed? We want to see progress being made. We want to see us overcome this perennial challenge of logistics, perennial challenge of insecurity, perennial challenge of maybe some external factors they don't cooperate with us. We need to get things right, and we have 4 years to plan for this. And it's not cast in stone that the election had to hold today. If we know this about a week earlier and we postpone, we will have cut the loss by at least 50%. And that's my own standpoint on this issue.
Mr. Nwagu,
Ezenwa is good enough.
Ezenwa
is good.
No, I just want to be formal. Okay. We talk about plan, and INEC certainly will tell you it has been planning. But in the Nigerian situation is that when you head an organization, sometimes it's like you are driving, or you are swimming against the tide. Yeah. You are doing your plans, and some other people are doing a counter plan and dragging you back. Have we seen that not necessarily in INEC, but in the polity of Nigeria being dragged back?
Femi, you see, today.
I am not using this. Sorry, please. I am not using this to keep talking about our failures. I am using it to keep looking at how next Saturday will not be another.
I want you to permit me today.
Yes.
Today.
Yes.
To be completely, wholly, incurably optimistic.
Okay.
Okay? Yes. And I have my reason for that. I said when I started that the three of us in this panel are investors. And I mean it with every sense of responsibility. YIAGA Africa, that I sit on his board, deployed over 3,888 observers across the country. We have 80.
We can't move forward if we don't know what caused our falls.
Yes. Let me
okay.
80 data clerks, okay, that will process, PVT, statistical information that is coming from those polling units. We have students from Auburn University in the United States who are in country on a learning visit. We have our partners from Ghana who have joined us from CDD in Ghana. We have president of NDI, the vice president of IRI, leading delegation into the country. I know how huge the disappointment is. I'm aware. But I have invested, GDA has invested a lot of time in inspiring confidence. We had a setback. But if this election had gone on, let's say in spite of the challenges, as they say, it goes on. And we get results from, by tomorrow, few results trickling, next tomorrow another 3 coming, and then we make an announcement. It is all
discredited.
No, we make an announcement and say because election could not hold in these states, it will be done the next 2 days. We wait for the result. All of us will be going to International Conference Center, Coalition Center to wait for the number of days it will take to do that. But if there is that painful decision to short the process and say, let us see whether we can ameliorate the things. The thing to do is to tell that my brother that I have continually told that it is about Nigeria. I'm not sympathetic to INEC. I'm sympathetic to the democratic process, which can suffer hemorrhage and bleed to death if all of us do not put our hands on the... Today, our responsibility is to oversight INEC in the next 1 week. And that is why I talked about a national electoral emergency. That when you have an emergency, what you need to do is to make sure that this baby is delivered. This child has to be born on January 23rd. All of us. So the thing that we're doing now is to mobilize everybody to say the sacrifices you've made, all that you have put in should not go to waste.
Okay.
we need to all work together to ensure that 23 comes and gives us peaceful, credible election that is acceptable. Okay. Because the bigger challenge of elections now is acceptability. If you go ahead and people say, oh no, this was skewed to advantage, the scattered election was viewed to advantage person, it is me and Jide and Amiso and many of us that will be running around the same station to quell, and so disinformation will come. These pressures will be there. But as people who are investors, who are working in this process, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to lift ourselves above the disappointments that we feel at this time and mobilize our citizens to oversight INEC from wherever they are. In Imo, you have to go to the INEC office as groups, as individuals, to get a sense of what is going on and how it will be possible for 23rd to come to fruition. If we don't have elections, eventually, on the 23rd, you are pushing the country to a greater precipice. I mean, and that will be worst investment, because these sleepless nights, nobody can compensate. Who is going to pay you? Who will? Even if you shout from now till tomorrow and say you brought people have bought their ticket, you are exciting people. They are happy that okay, we've made a lot of commitment, but the reality of it is that there is a 23rd to face right now. And the time to face it is from this minute.
Abdulrahman, let's begin to follow that line. Give us your thinking of the things, at least based on the information that is available to you, on the things that we need to do, either as a nation or as analysts or as investors in the electoral process or as the conductors of the electoral process itself, that we can begin to do to make sure that eventually 23rd is applauded.
Well, one of the things that has been a challenge in this country is planning and sticking to plan, especially within the context we'll be speaking. In the last 4 years, I have not heard, I have not read, nobody has told me, either by way of gossip or social media fake news, that Nigerian politicians have turned a new leaf of life and that they will not rig election if given the opportunity. Everyone says something which is very pertinent and is something that we need to keep at the back of our minds when we're discussing election. It is a shame that up to this moment, we are now differentiating between sensitive materials that are supposed to be in the custody of CBN, that will take a whole lot of political parties, civil society organizations, security agencies to accompany same. In other countries, one person will sit with electoral material, whether sensitive or not sensitive, and people will come and exercise their vote and judge. Because of what? Because trust. At every point in time, there is trust deficit in this country, especially in the electoral process. The incumbent party does not trust the opposition. The opposition does not trust the party in power. And because of that, a whole lot of energy is dissipated in planning, in ensuring. Okay, look at what it will take to have all the political parties gathered at CBN, CSOs coming to join them, security agencies coming to join them, all the logistics it will take to accompany such materials, to flying by jet, to take it to the state headquarters, another set of logistics again. So, if we are talking, it's not as if you kept water in front of you and you just sip it and you drink it. No, it is about people that are desperate to act, that are planning to sabotage as INEC is planning to outsmart them. So, going forward, for instance, we really need to know who were those persons that were charged with those responsibilities of putting together logistics, and what happened? Do they really sabotage the institution that they swore to work for? And what are the punitive measures that are in place to ensure that those people are adequately dealt with using all the available constitutional means, so that tomorrow they don't find it very, very lucrative to do that? For instance, I was telling myself, close to my house there is INEC office. I just choose not to talk because we're saying that it's not good, we lament. As at yesterday, by 6, 7, 8, 9, the ad hoc staff was still at INEC Secretariat, waiting to be mobilized to go to their polling unit. Now, what we are doing here is to say, okay, all of these gaps have been there, and it has been identified quickly, And INEC has stopped the process in order to audit itself. But it should not stop at auditing itself and allowing people that maybe are found or to have sabotaged the system to go. Because if you do that, it's an incentive for others to do that next time. So what we are saying here is this: we are going to wait for INEC to tell us the reasons for the postponement based on the observed lapses. These lapses, are they human error? Is it mechanical? Is it what? Is it by the error? Is it as a result of inability of those that are supposed to fly the sensitive materials to the designated? So if it is a lapse that is as a result of human error, that is pardonable. But where people deliberately, out of their own selfish interest, decide to sabotage the system and cause the nation untold hardship by imposing on them a sort of embarrassment that is international in nature and magnitude, is something that is unacceptable. So for me, going forward is, let us take stocks. What went wrong? Is there human error? Is it technical? Okay, is it a sabotage? And if it's a sabotage, who does what and at what point? And then what are the punitive measures to ensure that those people are adequately punished to mitigate something like this, to ensure, that something like this does not happen in the future.
Thank you. We'll take another break for a very important story just coming in. The president, Muhammadu Buhari, has formally apologized to Nigerians, and especially the supporters of this government. And the president has apologized for the inconveniences suffered following the postponement of the general elections by INEC. The president stated this while speaking exclusively to NTA's State House correspondent, Adamu Sambo, at the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. This was shortly after he returned to the nation's capital from Daura after failing to cast his ballot due to the rescheduling of the polls 1 week later.
Your Excellency, we understand you are not happy about this postponement of the election. Why are you so disappointed?
Yes, because INEC has all got the time. It is supposed to work according to their program. They were given all the resources, they had all the time, and they kept on telling us up to the last minute that they are ready. The fact that they are not ready, there is some inefficiency along the line. Thank you very much.
Tell your supporters nationwide.
Well, they should be patient. Let them come a week today and go and vote again. I apologize for this inefficiency because they have to use their own resources to go back to their polling units, wherever it is, at their own expense if they are all that committed.
This is Wuse Market. The market was opened moments ago. As you can see, traders are coming in to go about their daily activity after the sudden postponement of the 2019 February 16th and March 2nd elections by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, citing logistic challenges. Now, how does this affect women who have the highest percentage of voting population in Nigeria? Let's hear their views.
The market, everything is closed down, nothing is happening. The economy has been, you know the percentage of the economy we've lost just for today.
It's surprising to everyone and waste of time, money.
I left my house yesterday from Airport Road to Wuse 2. I spent the night with my sister here in Wuse 2. Just early in the morning, over the radio, I learned that it has been postponed. I wasted my fuel. I left my children at home, and look at me now, I'm now on my way back home.
So many people traveled yesterday just for this election, and just to discover that it wouldn't hold. And what do you feel those people will, how would they feel?
It came as a surprise, because if
a nation at this age cannot get it right, then something is wrong with the foundation. Kind of disorganize people's movement and what they plan to do today. I'm not happy.
That's the situation report here from the Wuse market in Abuja. I am Bossede Able, NTA News.
Okay, we have another report coming in from Delta, and let's take it.
I am standing on Nnebisi Road. It's a road that is usually busy. Beside me is Uzigwe Primary School. That is where some persons are supposed to have cast their votes today, but for the postponement. And I have standing here a voter who came out to vote.
There wasn't any information as per voting. We're told to vote, so I just came out to vote. It's annoying.
The problem in this election is that we are not prepared. You know, under 24 hours, that everybody is ready for the election, and we are ready to vote to our own candidates. Under 24 hours, we just cancelled.
In terms of this postponement, they should have given us a better time than this 9-minute information.
I wait because of it 5 a.m. this morning to come and cast my vote, but I'm hearing it, I was not happy.
Did you know the election has been postponed?
No, I don't know before. I come with my ID, my voter's card, so that is this thing. So now I say the no shift time. We thank God for everything.
If actually that they are serious and they want to postpone the election, it could have been preformed before the time.
I'm a Nigerian, but I based in South Africa. I'm here to cast my vote in Nigeria. Suddenly this morning, I had the news that the election was cancelled. And why the election was cancelled? We really want to know why.
People left everything they're doing and they came to the field and they realized that everything is postponed, and it's somehow.
A cross-section of Deltans reacting to the postponement of the election. It is hoped that when this election is eventually rescheduled, they will all come out with the same enthusiasm to cast their votes. From Asaba, I am Thelma Eliog, NTA News.
Thank you, Thelma, and Damu Sambo actually, and then Bosse De Abel for all your reports. And we still have reports coming in. The Buhari Media Organization has also sent in its own reaction to the postponement of the election by INEC. Here is the reaction. Okay, the reaction actually says that the media organization, in a statement signed by its chairman, Niyi Akishiju, and secretary, Kasidi Madwike, says it was disappointed that the INEC chairman allowed the commission to be infiltrated by opposition elements. The pro-Buhari group also recalled that it once drew attention to possible infiltration of the commission by opposition elements through a former INEC chairman, but it was not aware that the commission did much to arrest the situation. The postponement has been orchestrated, according to the statement, in collision with the main opposition. Let's take the reaction of the presidential candidate of the PDP. The PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, says he was shocked over the postponement of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections as announced by INEC. The presidential candidate said his party caucus will be meeting in Abuja, after which they will react to the postponement. He, however, called on the electorate to be calm and come out on the rescheduled date to cast their ballot. So let's return to the studio, having had more feelers from the streets and see what Nigerians are talking about and how they are feeling. And joining us already in the studio is Samson Utodo, the Executive Director, YIAGA Africa. You're welcome to Nigeria decides.
Pleasure to
We have been on it. I'm sure you two have been talking with your constituency all around the world, I'm sure. But let Nigerians hear from you. Don't know how you feel as a person and how YIAGA is reacting to this postponement.
I've been following this this program, and Ezenwa has been advancing the viewpoint of YIAGA, because we did issue a statement this afternoon or this morning on our position, and first to say that we are very disappointed, the same way Nigerians are disappointed, that despite the assurances that we got from the Electoral Commission that the Commission was ready, we grappled with this challenge of election logistics, which has become part of our pathology of elections in Nigeria, and this is very, very disturbing. But then, the country must move on, and we have to move away from this. So the question is, if this election were not postponed, or what could have been the best option available to us? And for us at YIAGA, and our statement is very, very clear, that the decision to postpone this election was right, else we would have had a disaster to actually manage. And as YIAGA, who we deploy PVT, as at yesterday evening, we were already having conversations that we are very, very concerned that polling units, over 50% of polling units will not be opening by 8 o'clock. If these elections were not postponed, you will have a situation where people will go to the polls and there will be insufficient materials. And that's totally unacceptable, especially the Commission and the assurances that it gave Nigerians. And so for us at YIAGA, we believe that the Commission do owe stakeholders an explanation. I've just come from a meeting where the INEC chairman briefed heads of missions, and he's laid about 7-point action plans of what the Commission is doing. And I know as he will address the stakeholders today or in a short while, he will share some of these issues. And based on the feelers from the Commission, that this postponement had nothing to do with security. It had nothing to do with any form of political interference, that it was simply an operational issue. And if it's operational and has to do with logistics, for us at YIAGA, we have said that beyond tendering an apology, if there were any form of internal sabotage within the Electoral Commission, there is need for INEC to come up and tell Nigerians and then take actions. But what the chairman did say from this meeting, and just for the purposes of informing the public, and he did say first it was simply around operational issues, that the volumes of election materials that came into the country, when the time came for the internal distribution, there were several issues, and there was no capacity to distribute the materials to the different states, as the case may be. And for us as citizens, the question we would ask is, didn't the Commission actually foresee this? Didn't it make adequate preparations for this? And that is where we should have a lot of questions to ask the Electoral Commission. But INEC has gone ahead to say over the next 1 week, this is what's their plan, that from tomorrow, by tomorrow, they will complete the deployment of election materials to the states as by Monday 18th. And then the Commission also said they were going to conduct this election, reschedule the election for 48 hours. And that was the initial plan. But when the IT department gave their report to say that reconfiguring the card readers, because the card readers needed to be reconfigured, and we have about 180,000 smart card readers that were already deployed, and they were deployed to only function today that was supposed to be the elections, and INEC would need to reconfigure the card readers. And it will take about plus or minus 4 or 5 days for the Electoral Commission to reconfigure the card readers before they are suitable for deployment for elections. And so for reconfiguring the card readers, and those card readers are currently being retrieved from the states down to the state headquarters, it's going to take between Tuesday and Thursday. So by Thursday, they will conclude the reconfiguring of the card readers. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, the receipt and deployment of sensitive materials to the local governments will commence midweek. And then on the 21st, INEC is going to conduct a refresher training for its ad hoc officials before the elections. And then 22nd, the RACs, the registration area centers, are going to be activated before the elections on the 23rd. This is the new operational plan which the Electoral Commission has shared, indicating that it's actually preparing for Saturday. But again, this is not the first time the Commission is sharing operational plans. Yeah. And I know that yes, the Commission should learn from this experience, and citizens do have a role to play in keeping watch over the implementation of this plan. I'd like to see that from tomorrow, citizens and the press are asking INEC, you said you were going to complete deployment of materials at the state by Monday 18th. Have you done that? Show us evidence that you've actually done this. But we need oversight on how INEC implements this operational plan between now and Saturday. You know, a question was asked, directed to the chairman, to say, do you think it is realistically possible to conduct this election within 7 days? And he gave the assurances that yes, that the Commission is adequately prepared to conduct this election. And the Commission was prepared to conduct this election even today, but because of the sensitivities of Sunday, and people have to go to church, and the restriction of movement, and then Monday, but the card reader issue came up, and so INEC needed that time. And this is what the Electoral Commission has actually said. And my point, and for us at YIAGA Africa, is that citizens have a role to play. And the fact that this postponement has come...
If citizens ask, have you done this? And they reassure you that they have done it the way they did previously, what can the citizens do?
The citizens
are not in a position to actually monitor on ground.
No, the citizens, you see, there are different layers to this. The citizens have a role to play. And what role is to continue to demand for accountability. If INEC procurement ensure that a vendor
Samson,
was made...
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We appreciate this update you have given us. But the real thing is about to start at the International Conference Center. Mio Gidi is there. He will be our guide to the official briefing of Nigerians through all stakeholders that are gathered at the
venue of the meeting. And any moment from now, the meeting will start. Before now, the INEC chairman and the election management team, they have been holding a meeting with some key stakeholders inside the situation room of the International Conference Center. Right now, they have come to the conference room where all party agents, including the chairman of the All Progressives Party, and as well as other members of the PDP, political parties, they're all gathered here. So even the ambassadors from some countries are here. So let's see how the meeting goes. We're going to update you the details of it subsequently. Thank you. Back to you, Femi.
Oh, okay, thank you. I think we should remain at the International Conference Center to hear what they have to say, if they are actually ready. But if not, we can continue our own analysis here. Okay. So it's just as well that the stage is set for Nigerians to hear formally. But thank you for the privileged information that we have. But I was asking, and you were going to explain the stages, but because they have assured us, Nigerians have always monitored through the media, through the civil society organizations, how far have you gone, how far, and up till yesterday they were giving assurances. So if they gave assurances as per this timetable you have given you, what can the citizens do?
First, the citizens have...
okay. Sorry, please. The chairman is ready to take the microphone, and we'll go back there.
Honorable Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, and the Chief Electoral Commissioner, National Commissioners, Your Excellencies, party chairmen and leaders here present, our domestic and foreign observers, gentlemen of the press, good afternoon, and welcome to the National Coalition Center for the 2019 general elections. As you're all aware, at this time, we should have started the process of sorting, counting, an announcement of results at the polling unit. It's past 3 now, and the polls ought to have closed at 2 p.m. But due to certain circumstances, a statement had to be released early this morning, rescheduling the polls. And that statement basically just said the polls have been rescheduled and gave the reason for it without going into details. So we have to thank you, first of all, for honoring our invitation to be here. Quite a number of you came well within time, and we're grateful for that. And again, our sincere apologies for that. We will not take that much of your time. The way this will go is that the chairman will do a briefing, and then we'll entertain some questions from the diplomatic community, from the party leaders for explanations, and also from observers, both domestic and international. So just bear with us. Let me very quickly, before I invite the chairman to make his comments and give his brief, quickly introduce members of the commission. And it is this commission that is responsible for the conduct of the 2019 elections. I've already introduced the Chief Electoral Commissioner, who also by law is the returning officer for the presidential election. He's the only returning officer that is known to the public. That is because he is by law the returning officer for the presidential elections, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, Chairman, INEC. Seated to his right is a national commissioner, a lawyer, Mrs. May Agbamuche-Mbu. Dr. Adekunle Ogunmola, a former resident electoral commissioner, now a national commissioner, seated next to her. Engineer Abubakar Nahuche is seated next to Dr. Ogunmola. And Professor Chukwu Obiano is seated next to Engineer Nahuche. Next to Professor Obiano is Prince Solomon Shoyebi, who is a national commissioner as well. And Hajia Amina Zakari, another national commissioner, is seated at the extreme of the table. On the left of the Honorable Chairman is Dr. Mustafa Leki, national commissioner. And Commissioner Mohammed Kudu Haruna is next to him. Festus Okoye Esquire, now a national commissioner, is next to Madam Haruna. Alhaji Bawashitima Arfo is seated next to him. And the last sitting on the list is Professor Antonia Simbine, national commissioner. So, gentlemen, these are the people that are responsible for this election. May I respectfully now call on the Honorable Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission to kindly brief the House as to why we invited you here today. You can do from there. Can you forward? Sorry, that's coming. Because with cameras and microphones.
Our respected former head of state, His Excellency General Yakubu Gowon, the Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations for West Africa and the Sahel, His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, our respected party leaders and presidential candidates, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, my colleagues, chairmen of electoral commissions from our sub-region, representing the Republic of Sierra Leone, I can see Mohamed Alfanje from the Republic of Sierra Leone. I can see my colleague from the Republic of Gambia, the chairman of the Electoral Commission Gambia. Thank you very much. Ahmed Barry Newton from Burkina. Thank you, Barry. Our sister Maria de Rosario Gonçalves, chairperson Electoral Commission of Cape Verde. And our friend, the chairman or representative of the chairman of the Electoral Commission of Niger Republic. And then Tete, representing the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much, members of civil society organizations. Thank you very much, national and international observers, ladies and gentlemen. About 13 hours ago, I conveyed to Nigerians the decision of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to reschedule the 2019 general elections by 1 week. Presidential and National Assembly elections, earlier scheduled for 16th February 2019, will now hold on Saturday, 23rd February 2019, while governorship, state assembly, and FCT area council elections, scheduled for the 2nd of March 2019, will now hold on Saturday, 9th March 2019. The 1 week adjustment was a painful one for INEC, but necessary in the overall interest of our democracy. Nigerians will recall that when this commission was appointed in November 2015, we promised Nigerians two cardinal things. First, we shall work hard to consolidate the improvements made in the management of elections in Nigeria since 2011. Secondly, we shall always be open, transparent, and responsive. We have strived diligently to keep these promises in very trying circumstances. In keeping with our promise to consolidate the gains of the last two electoral cycles, the Commission conducted 195 rerun and off-season elections across the country since the last general elections in 2015. Most of these elections have been generally adjudged to show progressive improvements in planning, execution, and outcomes. This commitment to continue to improve on election administration has informed our preparations for the 2019 general elections. Our goal is to plan carefully, execute meticulously, and bring stability into election management in Nigeria. Consequently, we announced fixed dates for election in Nigeria to the effect that presidential and National Assembly elections will always hold on the third Saturday of the month of February of an election year, while governorship and state assembly elections follow 2 weeks later. Having settled this, we began the planning quite early with a strategic plan, a strategic program of action, and an election project plan. In fact, the plan for the 2019 general elections was already in the offing in November 2017, and we subsequently issued the timetable and schedule of activities for the elections over a year ago on the 9th of January 2018. We carefully followed the timetable and implemented 13 out of 14 activities as scheduled. Not one aspect was postponed. 13 out of 14. We kept to the time frame and have not missed the date for any single activity. In preparing for the 2019 general elections, we have come face to face with the realities of conducting such an extensive national deployment of men and materials in a developing country such as ours. It is said that elections constitute the most extensive mobilization of men and materials that any country can undertake in peacetime. The challenges of doing so, even under the best circumstances, are enormous. Within a period of 16 months, we registered over 14 million Nigerians as new voters, collecting their names, addresses, photographs, and the entire 10 fingerprints. Beyond that, we prepared, printed, and delivered their permanent voter cards for collection. I should note that of the 14.28 million permanent voter cards made available for collection, about 10.87 million, or 76.12%, have already been collected. It is often not appreciated the magnitude of activities that the Commission undertakes during general elections. Not only the recruitment and training of about 1 million people to serve as ad hoc staff, the magnitude of materials mobilized for our election is simply enormous. For instance, INEC has printed 421.7 million ballot papers for the 6 scheduled elections, as well as 13.6 million leaves, of result forms for the presidential election alone. Indeed, managing 91 political parties and 23,316 candidates for whom votes will be cast in 119,973 polling units by over 84 million voters is certainly astounding. No doubt, preparations for the 2019 general elections have been extensively tasking for INEC. It is therefore not unexpected that such a tremendous national mobilization of men and materials will encounter operational challenges, and we have had our own fair share of these challenges. There has been delays in delivering ballot papers and result sheets for the elections, which is not unusual. However, I must emphasize that all ballot papers and result sheets were ready before the elections, despite the very tight legal framework for finalizing nominations of candidates and dealing with the spate of legal challenges that accompany it. In this regard, the Commission has been sued or joined in 640 court cases arising from the nomination of candidates alone. As of today, there are 40 different court orders against the Commission on whether to add or drop candidates. Interestingly, the last order actually arrived yesterday. The net effect of this is that there is usually roughly 1 month window for the Commission to print ballot papers and result sheets and either fly or transport them to several destinations until they finally get to each of the polling units. Unfortunately, in the last 1 week, flights within the country have been adversely affected by bad weather. For instance, 3 days ago, we were unable to deliver materials to some locations due to bad weather. We therefore had to rely on slow-moving, long-haulage vehicles to locations that can be serviced by air, in spite of the fact that we created 5 zonal hubs: Abuja for the North Central, Port Harcourt for the South-South and Southeast, Kano for the Northwest, Maiduguri and Yola for the Northeast, and Lagos for the Southwest, to facilitate the delivery of electoral logistics. Apart from these logistical challenges, we also faced what may well be attempts to sabotage our preparations. In a space of 2 weeks, we had to deal with serious fire incidents in 3 of our offices in Isialangwa South, local government area of Abia State, Kwampan, local government area of Plateau State, and our Anambra State office in Oka. In all 3 cases, serious disruptions were occasioned by the fire, further diverting our attention from regular preparations to recovery from the impact of the incidents. In Isialangwa South, hundreds of PVCs were burnt, necessitating the recompiling of the affected cards and reprinting them in time to ensure that the affected voters are not disenfranchised. I am glad to say that all the cards were quickly reprinted and made available for collection by their owners. In Kwampan, local government area, our entire office was razed, destroying all the materials prepared for the elections, from the printed voter registers, the ballot boxes, the voting cubicles, and several electricity generating sets. 11 registration areas with over 100 polling units were affected by the fire. We recovered quickly and have since replaced everything destroyed in Kwampan. In addition, we secured a suitable building from which to conduct the elections. Perhaps the most serious was the fire incident in our Anambra office in Oka, which destroyed over 4,600 smart card readers being prepared for the elections. These card readers take at least 6 months to procure. Despite this setback, we have practically recovered from this by mopping up every available spare smart card reader across the country within 24 hours and delivered them for elections to hold in Anambra State. All these challenges mean that there have been differences in preparations from one state to another. Our overall assessment is that if the elections went on as planned, polls will not open at 8 in the morning in all polling units nationwide. Yet, we are determined that polls must hold at the same time and in every part of the country. In this way, no elections will be staggered. This is very important to public perception of elections as free, fair, and credible. We promise Nigerians that we shall be open, transparent, and responsive. Faced with these challenges, we initially thought that we only require a maximum of 24 hours to resolve the logistics issues involved and complete our deployment for the election. This would mean shifting the elections to commence on Saturday, 17th February 2019. However, given the restriction of movement during elections, that could affect many voters who worship on Sundays. While the Commission was considering the following Monday, 18th February 2019, as an option, our ICT department advised us that it would require 5 to 6 days to reconfigure about 180,000 smart card readers earlier programmed to work only on election day, Saturday, 16th February 2019. It is for this reason that the Commission decided to adjust the election dates to Saturday, 23rd February 2019 for Presidential and National Assembly elections, and a consequential adjustment of governorship, State Assembly, and FCT Area Council elections to Saturday, 9th March 2019. Some sensitive materials have been distributed. However, all such materials have been retrieved and will be taken back to the Central Bank of Nigeria for custody. I want to assure you that there will be proper audit to account for all materials. In the next few days, the Commission will work on the basis of the following plan. Number 1, completion or confirmation of deployment of materials. Monday, 18th February 2019. Configuration of smart card readers, Sunday 17th to Thursday 21st February 2019. Receipt and deployment of sensitive materials to local governments, Wednesday 20th and Thursday 21st February 2019. Refresher training for ad hoc staff, Thursday 21st February 2019. Deployment of personnel to the registration area centers and the super racks, Friday 22nd February 2019. Election day is Saturday 23rd February 2019. I want to appeal to Nigerians and all other stakeholders for their understanding in what has been a very difficult decision for the Commission. Our decision is entirely taken by the Commission. It has nothing to do with security, nothing to do with political influence, nothing to do with availability of resources. We believe that ultimately this decision is good for our democracy and for our country. I wish to assure you of our commitment to free, fair, and credible elections. As chairman of INEC, and on behalf of the Commission, we take full responsibility for what happened, and we regret any inconvenience our decision might have caused. I thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. I was the chairman of INEC. I'm sure there are a couple of people who have one or two things to say or questions to ask. This will be taken in an orderly manner. If you could quickly, please just announce your name. First of all, indicate your interest and announce your name. And then we'll pass the microphone to you. Yes, let's start from the leaders of the political parties.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm being Ashim, Presidential Candidate People's Trust. It's always a matter of regret when there is a disappointment and that you have taken responsibility for in humility. And I congratulate the Commission for moving swiftly to communicate this to Nigerians. In the past, we've had election cancelled even when voting were going on. I think we experienced that in 2011. So this is thankfully not a repeat of that. We've also had election postponed in 2015 for about 6 weeks. So I think what has happened is not without an historical example, but we hope in the nearest future that we will get over this kind of hiccups by the grace of God. What is important to me and to most electorates that we do this election under an atmosphere of peace and that we keep the unity and stability of this country even after the polls. I would have been more confident if you allowed also other stakeholders to make input into your new dates since you were calling this meeting. A new date for election has logistic implications for parties and candidates and even electorates who would have traveled, who will have to go back, or even observers and other stakeholders. Maybe for the major parties who have the votes of their various states they control to their advantage, it's very simple for them to just bring out new cash for deployment. But for parties that are still dependent on the individual efforts of their various members, it's going to be an uphill task. They need to review this. Secondly, we need to know, apart from the issues that you have identified, though you have stressed that you take responsibility that's nothing to do with security, it will also be worthwhile to know whether these issues have been fully addressed. So I wish you a successful conduct of the next election. And by the grace of God, you can still win a laurel, Mr. Chairman. After all, YIAGA postponed 2 elections, still got recognized for having a successful election. You have not done badly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The gentleman in the extreme.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dr. Emeka Okengwu. I'm National Chairman, Alliance of Social Democrats. I want to commend your courage. I want to commend your forthrightness. And I want to commend your humility, Mr. Chairman, in wanting to make certain that we'll have credible elections in Nigeria. However, there are some other issues I think that you might need to look at again. And that has to do with, one, the fact that us as political parties, I was actually woken up by about 2:35 in the morning by a chairman from one of my states to say this election has been postponed. But we have, in our little way, mobilized agents to go into the field. That's a very major challenge for us as maybe not too big political parties who control state resources. But what is more worrisome, Mr. Chairman, which I want to bring to your attention, is even the conditions of the staff of the INEC deployed to the field. It is most deplorable. There are pictures of people who, a lot of them young girls, sleeping out, some of them in buses, some of them on bare grounds. I would have thought that part of what you might put in, sir, as your logistics programming, now that you have a relationship with the Army, is to see if you can be able to get some of these camp beds and tents that they use. Probably get a one-stroke engine generator to make life a little bit more comfortable for even your own staff. So on a final note, sir, the request will be, and I think I stand to speak of some other parties like me too, would INEC also be considering the political parties and what it is going to be costing us to be redeploying personnel, agents, all across the country in this logistics? And again, in taking the new dates, is it cast in stone, or is it possible for us to also make some input that can make all this, work for all of us? May God guide and keep protecting you, sir. You're indeed a brave man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tope Kolade Fashua. I'm Chairman ANRP, Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, which we also know as the Computer Party. I'm also the presidential candidate. I thank you for your honest take on the issue, even though it's quite jarring to many of us. Of course, I've been asked by some of my candidates on our platform whether you are going to have any kind of compensation for the party, according to also what Dr. Okengwu said. I also think that this current scenario and what we have seen that in 2011, 2015, and now in 2019, INEC postpones elections, that we need to now begin to think of how to systemize a lot of your operations and go down the route of information technology and technology in general. Nigerians are asking why with their PVCs, they cannot vote anywhere they are. After all, they are now used to ATMs, and with their ATM cards, they can withdraw anywhere. This whole idea of people traveling back to their villages and so on is not only expensive monetarily, but also does not promote the unity of this country. I think we should invest. Let's begin to look forward now and really invest in that process. And we would also want to have your assurances that with the given 7 days or so to the elections now, how do you ensure that you prevent sabotage of any type? Those who want to take the time as opportunity to rig or to make deals back end. We would want your assurances because, again, If Nigeria's GDP is $420 billion or thereabout, that means daily Nigeria is shutting in, like today, perhaps at least half of a day's GDP, which would be anything in the region of $700 million. And so people who have gone to the villages are wondering if they should stay the next 7 days, in which case they'll have to stay for 3 weeks, or if they should come back, and how do we work that out? So anyway, on that note, I'd like to end, and I thank you for your forthrightness, yourself and members of your team, who I know from our interactions with you as a chairman of a party that you are striving hard to be upright and to deliver the goods to Nigerians. But of course, this is a very testy times, and this is also a very shocking news to us. Thank you very much.
Can I appeal, please, that any issue that has been taken up by any other person, let us not, to save time, not repeat them. So we already have issues on compensation for parties and also this issue of inputs into the dates, whether the dates fixed by the commissioner are sacrosanct or not. Next person, please.
Thank you very much. Permit me to sit on existing protocols and sit to align with my colleagues here. Yes.
Your name, sir?
My name is Dr. Chike Okogo, and I represent the African Democratic Congress. I'm actually the Deputy National Chairman, Strategy, Innovation, and Change. In thinking out your dates and all the things going on, persons with disabilities were not considered. A lot of us have traveled home to go and vote. Please, INEC, look into this and see how you can ameliorate the pains that persons with disabilities who have to travel with their assistants, who pay double to travel back and forth. For the Braille, thank you for the Braille initiative. But I must also let you know that the information has not gone round as much as it should. Yesterday, a young man was on channels, and I sent a text to Mr. Wole that somebody was on channels and we needed to address that. So please, let's use this period to also quicken the pace of work as regards that. And in thinking of solutions, we want to plead with the INEC to reach out to Luxury Bus Owners Association, airlines, and all the transporters in Nigeria, NURTW, that on presentation of your PVC, persons should be given some discount. 50% discount to bring them back to base and 50% to take them back to, yes, I mean, these are things that we should be able to do for ourselves. Thank you very much for your courage and thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Chief Army, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman and members of the Convention. My name is Chief Peter Ame. As of yesterday, when this news broke out, my phone was buzzing. It was really ringing from that moment in this daybreak. In fact, I was very angry initially. I was very, very angry because I thought it would have been wise if the Commission had called the critical stakeholders. There are a lot of stakeholders when it comes to election partnering and other issues. But in our own democracy, political parties are critical partners in the electoral process. And we should be number one on the list at all times. Because without political party presenting candidates for the election, there won't be election in the first place, based on our constitution. So that was the reason why I was angry, because in 2011 when it happened, the election was already going on. We were called to Nikon Luxury. We had a meeting before the postponement was announced. In 2015, we were called to INEC headquarters. All parties had meetings before postponement was announced. But this had happened. And I think from what I've gathered so far, my temper had gone down seriously. Because I've seen that you have acted in the interest of our country. You have acted in the interest that our democracy, our elections will be credible, will be fair. You have acted that a staggered election will not be a national election. For us, I'm very sure that what you're going through, that the guy went through twice, another chairman comes, will go through it. For all these obvious reasons. Because I think INEC is overburdened, and INEC should be unbundled. INEC should be unbundled because INEC takes a lot of work in this head. INEC is responsible for registration of political party, printing of PVC, monitoring of party convention, distribution of materials, delineation. The work is enormous. INEC is even responsible for trying electoral offenders. When we are supposed to, in the waste panel, we are supposed to already have electoral offenders commission, political party registration commission. If INEC is just left with the responsibility of conducting election, I think our election process will be more simple, will be more comfortable, and it will give us peace. For Chairman, on behalf of Nigerians, and I've seen what you have done, I want to seriously commend you. I want to commend members of your commission, the 12 members that were with you yesterday, taking this very hard decision on behalf of all Nigerians. And I want to thank Nigerians for their patience. They should remain calm, and that we have faith that INEC will conduct an election that will represent the true interest of the Nigerian people. Thank you.
My name is Gershon Benson, National Chairman, Democratic People's Party. Well, I don't want to repeat what others have said, but we have to commend INEC. Most often, if you are not there, you don't know what they're passing through. But we want to plead as a party. When this present management of INEC started, they had some challenges of inconclusive election. The very first one was in Kogi, and they've come out of that. There is no need to hurry. There is still time. If the decisions you have taken, and from that is Saturday, you can't get it right for whatever it is, you still have time to make an adjustment. And you still have time to make an adjustment. And equally, we stand by you for not staggering any election. The elections have to be conducted one day, and the results come out. Because if you stagger this election, it will diminish the faith Nigerians have on this commission. For us, we have faith in you because we have been following diligently all you've been doing. And honestly, you have not in any way, disappointed Nigeria. This particular last lap would definitely have to be gotten right. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. The name is Ali Shode of the Yes Party. My question basically is to do with the expenses you have already spent. Most likely you spend more than 100 billion naira. How are you going to generate another money, another amount to be able to do what you want to do again? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last, before we go to this side, so that I have some responses, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Osita Chidoka, representing the People's Democratic Party chairman. I align myself with the views expressed by other party chairmen in congratulating the chairman for his courage. I also align myself with the views that the staggered election is no election. So it is better we have one election than staggered election. But I come to this event with a slightly different question. Actually, two questions. First one is, there are current media reports which we highlighted about the managing director of Activate Technologies Limited, whose company has the contract to procure and supply INEC with PVCs, and whose owner is a candidate of the APC for a senatorial candidate in Niger State. So we have very strong evidence, it's been published widely in the media, that the owner of this had carefully hidden his ownership of this company, even with CAC documentation. But we were able to link him to the ownership of this company and the company preceding it, Act Technologies. So can INEC confirm that Activate Technologies Limited will have no involvement in the retrieval and reconfiguration of card readers that are taken to state level for this election of 23rd February? We couldn't raise this before the election of 16th February, and we want to see that Activate Technologies do not participate. Will INEC also allow independent verification that none of these potentially compromised card readers in the polling units in the affected states? We have some states we believe that Activate Technology has programmed the PVC card readers, and we want to be sure that those card readers, and we're going to provide the chairman with the list of the states and the polling units, so to see that these states have not been tampered with. Otherwise, we are very satisfied with the view you expressed that all sensitive materials will be returned to the central bank. So the last question is, will there be a third-party verification that they haven't been opened, they haven't been tampered with? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Perhaps the Honorable Chairman would like to respond to some of those questions before we go to another round of questions. Honorable Chairman, sir.
Well, thank you very much. This is for me actually the best part of this program, the interactive. So I will try as much as possible to respond briefly, though, to some of the issues raised, bearing in mind that immediately after this meeting, the entire commission is heading to the Abuja airport. One, to ensure that there is no material at the airport, and also to ensure that in the other hubs around the country, all materials have been delivered to locations. We are assuring you that by Monday, we'll give a full account of where the election materials are in relation to deployment. The first question is by the presidential candidate of the People's Trust about input into the date, the new date we proposed for the election. I entirely agree with the presidential candidate and with what others have said in this regard. Consultation is critical. But recall also that we have a system of regular consultation with political parties. We meet every quarter, whether there is any important issue to discuss or not. But in providing this explanation, I would like to draw the attention of party leaders to the provisions of the Electoral Act. The decision that INEC has taken to adjust the dates for the election is in tandem with the provision of Section 26 of the Electoral Act, which empowers the Commission to postpone or adjust dates in the event of violence, natural disaster, or any other reason, provided it is cogent and verifiable. This one is cogent and verifiable. But the same section of the Electoral Act also says that once the Commission takes such a decision, it must fix another date. It mustn't leave it in abeyance. And so we have taken the decision that we did. If we had the time, definitely would have consulted to arrive on a suitable or appropriate date. But we had to take a decision and to quickly communicate because polls were going to open at 8 in the morning today. And we took the decision around 2:30 a.m. INEC officials are servants of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I want to assure party leaders that we'll continue to consult with you in the interest of our democracy. Have the issues that led to the adjustment in the dates of election been addressed? I have outlined 6 procedures that we intend to take in order to address this problem. And so we have taken into consideration all the issues that have arisen, and we want to assure you that we are doing everything possible to ensure that nothing occurs again. Alliance for Social Democrat, conditions of INEC staff at staging posts. Basically, we are referring to the super racks, where some of the ad hoc staff stay the night so that they can deploy to the polling units at first light on Saturday. Our elections are normally held on Saturdays. We have done a lot to improve the super racks. Remember, these are not facilities owned by INEC. They are public facilities used by INEC once every 4 years for a general election or as the need arises. But we have taken steps. We have procured generators for each of the super racks because that is the place where the youth corps revise the manuals, the training manuals before they deploy to the polling units. They also seize the opportunity to recharge the smart card readers before deployment to the field. In some places, we have an understanding with the NYSC to ensure that mattresses are made available. We have also gone out of our way to provide mats rubber buckets, water tanks, toiletries, to make the condition comfortable for the ad hoc staff that we engage. Without this ad hoc staff, INEC cannot successfully conduct elections anywhere in Nigeria. And we don't take them for granted. We'll continue to do whatever we can to provide for their comfort. Chairman and presidential candidate of the NRP, compensation for parties for mobilizing for the elections. And now you have to demobilize, and then you have to remobilize again for the elections on Saturday. Well, INEC does not fund political parties. But at the same time, the law is very clear also as to how parties can be supported from the national purse. There has to be an act of the National Assembly, and the National Assembly has to make the resources available to the Commission to support political parties. Since members of the National Assembly are your candidates, you hold the key to resolving that issue. Why can't Nigerians vote anywhere with their PVCs? It's a very good suggestion. I think as our democracy matures more and we deploy and deepen the use of technology, this is going to happen. But for now, the law says that you only vote where you are registered, but you can transfer your vote elsewhere. So as long as the law remains what it is, and the level of technology also remains what it is, unfortunately, people can only vote where they are registered. Election is a process governed by law. Assurance on measures against saboteurs. Yes, we have taken measures. I think you are referring to the fire incidents in 3 locations. When the fire incident in Plateau happened, I personally called the Inspector General of Police. I requested for greater fortification of all our assets nationwide. And I'm happy to say that the Inspector General of Police responded positively. Because since Kwampan and since Anambra, there were 2 fire incidents averted. One, an attack on our office in Kwali in the FCT, and another one, an attack on one of our offices in Akwa Ibom State. In fact, the attack on the office in Akwa Ibom State and the fire that started was actually put out by the police. So we have taken measures to ensure that we protect our properties nationwide, and this is extended to the staff that we engage on election duty, as well as observers, candidates, voters, and the media. African Democratic Congress, ADC, ameliorate the pains of persons with disabilities who traveled with their aides to vote. It's a good suggestion. Perhaps for the 2023 general elections, we'll make some budgetary provision, but not to ameliorate them in case election is postponed. Our hope is that this is going to be the last postponement of elections. Need for voter education on the Braille Guide. Thank you very much. We'll continue to intensify voter education on the use of the Braille Guide. The Braille Guide was introduced by the Commission as part of our inclusive response to persons with disability in the electoral process. What is a Braille Guide? It's a jacket written in Braille, into which visually impaired voters can slip in the normal ballot paper, and for those who can read Braille, can easily identify the acronym of parties of their choice and thumbprint in a perforated box opposite the acronym of the party. Part of the innovation we introduced for persons with that kind of challenge to vote unassisted. But in addition, we are also approached by the Albedo Foundation to say that some of their members had difficulties reading party logos in the middle of the day. We asked the Abuja Foundation, what can we do? They said that we should introduce magnifying glasses at polling units. We deployed magnifying glasses in the Anambra governorship election, Ekiti and Oshun governorship elections, and will deploy magnifying glasses in the 2019 general elections. Then the deaf also approached the commission to say that yes, they can see, but they can't hear. But there are symbols that they can also read, similar to the Braille guide. What can we do for them? Can we do special posters? We responded by accepting that we should do so, and we have printed voter education posters using characters and symbols that the deaf identify. I know that those on wheelchairs have requested the commission to also provide ramps at polling units. We'll do whatever we can to ensure greater inclusion of persons with disabilities in our electoral process. As for discount to passengers with PVCs on commercial buses, I think as chairman of INEC, I'm incompetent to comment on that. The president of the National Union of Road Transport Workers and other unions in the road transport sector will be in a better position to assist. But if you want me to do a little bit of advocacy with the unions, I can do it on behalf of persons in that category. Chairman Amma, consultation with political parties, I think I've responded to that issue. But he also made a comment about INEC being overburdened. I think this is a discussion that this nation must hold after the 2023 general elections. 12 commissioners and a chairman are not only conducting elections in Nigeria, but managing the entire democratic system. I don't know when last any one of us had a decent sleep, but these are conversations we'll have after the elections. What is important for us at the moment is, in spite of the enormity of the challenges, we'll continue to do what we can to deliver free, fair, and credible elections in 2019, this year. Chairman DPP, thank you very much for your observations. Chairman Yes Party, are we financially buoyant to continue? Let me reply you this way. We are not complaining. Thank you very much. Representative of the PDP, you talked about media reports of a company involved in the production of the permanent voter cards. I think that company, I'm familiar with it, has been working with the commission since 2011. And you wanted some assurances that nothing untoward is going to happen to some of the PVCs. I want to assure you that we operate under a very, very strict regime, including possession of the algorithm that makes the permanent voter cards have handshake with the smart card reader. No electoral asset in the commission will ever be compromised. Never. But as for the other issues you raised, I think this is more a matter between you and the person that we have mentioned. But for us in the commission, we want to give you the assurance that the integrity of the processes and systems that we deploy for election is protected. Uncollected PVCs, will they be used for the election? No. But if you have any information to the effect that some people are in possession of PVCs and are trying to use it to compromise the election, please forward the information to us. This is the best way to deal with the problem. But I also want to say this. I was told that some political actors went around collecting the voter identification numbers on the PVCs of some voters, believing that such information can be used to compromise the smart card readers on election day. I have responded to this at several fora to say how unimaginative can someone be to pay money to collect information which has already been given to you. Each political party in Nigeria has the complete national register of voters, complete not only with pictures, but also the voter identification numbers. So why should you collect money? Why should you pay someone to collect information that you have, not only on him, but all other 84 million registered voters? But when we gave you the register, we gave you a full breakdown of persons registered from state distribution, local government distribution, ward distribution, polling units distribution. So you have the information, but we are absolutely certain that the use of the VIN number, the voter identification number, can never compromise our systems. So for those who think that way, please tell them that the bus has already left the station. We are far ahead of them. I think the last issue you raised was third party, but I couldn't quite get what the question was. Was it third party? Third party verification when the materials are recovered at the central bank. That's a very good suggestion. This will be considered. And in any case, by the time you take the materials from the central bank again, you'll all be there to bear witness. We will continue to deepen the integrity of the process, including making all materials to be used for the election available for scrutiny by political parties and citizens. I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairman. Let's come to the middle row, please. Starting from the first lady there, the first lady, please.
We have to
come sequentially, please. Try to understand. The lady, please. Give it to the lady. Give it to the lady, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is IA Georgina Dapopo, the National Chairman of the Young Democratic Party, YDP. I want to address issues that I think can be, that could and should be addressed within the next couple of days. One is, I think it's proper, considering that Nigerians have been largely inconvenienced by this postponement for the Independent National Electoral Commission to apologize to Nigerians. In the speech by the INEC chairman, where he postponed, and even in the speech he gave, and I did not hear any apology to Nigerians. And then also, I want to know is, because campaign officially shut down a day on Friday, 24 hours to the election, is it going to continue now? Are we going to continue with the campaign until 24 hours to the next date? And then the issues of PVCs. We had a lot of complaints by Nigerians of not being able to access their PVCs before the last date. Now that we have a couple of extra days, are we going to get some more days, maybe 2 or 3 days? By Wednesday, the latest is closed for Nigerians to be able to pick up their PVCs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. But by the way, the chairman did conclude, and I think he'll answer you. The next to her, please. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, sir, my name is Adam Soshomole, National Chairman of the All Progressive Congress. Let me associate myself with all the some of the comments made by my predecessors, my previous speakers, to thank you for inviting us to this session and for all the explanations you have made. On behalf of my party, we have confidence in INEC. But what you have not explained, with due respect, is why did you have to wait till 2 a.m. this morning to realize that you have logistic challenges? Because over the week, some people raised doubt about whether or not INEC was in a position to proceed with the election. And you keep reassuring the country that you are ready. Because like the gentleman from maybe one of the previous speakers said, we have incurred a lot of costs to mobilize party agents to 176,000 polling units across the country. This entails huge cost, it entails huge risk, and there are huge logistics. So as much as INEC has huge logistics to cope with, every serious presidential candidate has just as much huge logistics to cope with. But unlike INEC that can fall on public treasury, political parties have to look for resources to mobilize their agents to various polling points. So you beg the question with due respect when you say if inconveniences have been caused. Serious inconveniences have been caused. Nigerians have been subject to rude shock. And I don't know what anybody think. I feel very extremely cold. So when people say congratulations, commendation, what would we do if the thing was successful? I think we should be honest. I am shocked. I am disappointed. I am disgusted. And the real question that I will insist, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, is to tell us why by Wednesday you were not in a position, since you acknowledged that the weather was bad, you should have taken all of this into account and announced this postponement at least 48 hours before the due time, so that political parties don't have to mobilize resources across 176,000 polling units. Observers will stay where they are, and a lot of inconveniences will be saved. Yes, we have postponed election before, and we should not distort history. The election that was postponed in 2015 was at the instance of the then president, who cited security reasons. It was not by INEC. The one that was postponed in 2011 was a result of inconclusive materials. But we don't have to be detained by the imperfections of the past. We ought to have benefited from those lessons. And in all of this, the key issue is not whether election was postponed. Why at 2 a.m.? Why at 2 a.m. on the day of the election? You have more, you have explanation more to do. Because for me, it's not enough I don't associate myself to those who say commendation. No, let's be honest. Let's be honest. In 2015, we improved on 2013. If we had the benefit of 1 week notice that the thing is postponed, we will save a lot in terms of time, in terms of inconveniences, and even the shock. For those who are there to observe, I don't know what to think, but for we, the real players, it's a huge shock. I'm happy with the rather moderate tone of the PDP. But me, I come from a village this morning. I didn't sleep all night. We mobilized all day. So I ask you, sir, why didn't you inform us at least 48 hours before, when you notice that you have issues with the weather, you have issues with logistics, and at the airport, people can see a lot of cargoes. You didn't know all of this until 2 a.m. this morning? For me, time is the issue. And I want to associate myself with the young lady who said, of course you can't but accept responsibility. It doesn't offer me any comfort. I think you must go further to apologize to the Nigerian nation, because you have embarrassed us as a country and as a people. Now, I know how we have to work hard to keep to your administrative guidelines with regards to nomination of candidates, conducting our primaries. And you have been extremely hard. So why should we accept your explanation now? So on behalf of the All Progressive Congress, we demand apology from INEC. We insist that it is wrong to have announced it at 2 a.m. You had the benefit to have announced it much earlier so that you can save us the cost that we have incurred. Of course, it would be academic if we were to say you pay us. Okay, maybe we can go to court and ask you to pay. We can provide the evidence. But let me also say that the second question about consultation. Societies are not driven only by adherence to law. There are things that are necessary. You need to consult. And when we came here, able to find a seat, we are told that they are reserved for observers. I said, no, it should be first for the players, then the observers. This is about Nigerian people. It's not about our friends. It's about us. It's about us as a people. So please, as much as I listen attentively to all your explanations and I cannot fault them, the only thing that is missing is, given all this fact that you know, why wait till 2:30 a.m. when most decent Nigerians have gone to bed? We woke up this morning to find that there is no deal. I can accept that.
Thank you.
I insist we need apology. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please, we should try, if you ask a question, if you repeat it 5 times, the answer will still be given once. So I appeal to you to please ensure that you get it. Yes, sir. Chairman, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Yunusa Tanko, the national chairman of the NCP and also the presidential candidate of the NCP. Mr. Chairman, my question is, I wonder if the office of the chairman has an intelligence unit attached. Because this postponement seems to be a recurring decimal. We remember in 2011 we had the same thing. In 2015, as the chairman of APC just mentioned, the statement was credited to the National Security Advisor. It seems to me that the institutions that were saddled with responsibility of security were the ones that always start up the issue of postponement. Even in 2019, before you postponed the election as it were today, the Attorney General of the Federation was positioning a letter that the Zamfara state election should be postponed, thereby linking it to most situations that we are having today. While we salute your courage, I think it's very important that the early warning signals have already been established and that the quick intervention will have been made if we had a constant communication, even on telephones or all. We will have given this particular postponement a more strengthened position. But in essence, you must have that intelligence unit attached to your office to give you both internal and external report about those that may be sabotaging your effort internally and externally. I'm saying this with due respect with the information I had at a particular time in 2015. So this must be established so that it can guide you, no matter how good your intentions are. If this information do not come out on time for us to give you the backing, you may find yourself in a serious situation, and then we will find it difficult to give you the support that you require. But we as political parties, as critical stakeholders, we are ready to give you support, but you must keep us informed on time so that when your decisions come out, it will be a collective one. I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nkoye, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. My name is Godson Okoye, the National Chairman, United Democratic Party, a former presidential candidate. Well, once again, we're here and we're discussing election and postponement. But for the records, the election of 2015 was not postponed at the instance of the president. The National Council of State discussed the issue of election based on reports submitted by service chiefs about security situation in the country. And I remember vividly, political parties were invited to INEC, political party leaders. And I remember it was the only meeting with INEC that the national chairman of the then APC, His Excellency J. Oyegun, attended. He was there. The issues were presented to parties. These are the reports from what do you say? And I remember Professor Jagat then said, every party must vote yes or no on what will happen. And it's still very clear to me, 22 parties. Then there were, I think, about 27 parties in the country. 22 parties voted yes that the date should be changed. So it was not the decision of the president. So we must keep the record straight. Having said that, yes, we are disappointed about what happened, but then we are all humans too. And we commend your sincerity in inviting us. Yes, we will have been invited earlier, but we also understand because of the humongous logistic issues we're having. Yes, your meeting lasted till late in the night. Yes, we can also say, yes, we always say it was late, it was too late, but political meetings, when do they actually hold? I was awake up to 2 a.m. last night, and people were still complaining, and that leads me to my first point. The point is, as at 1 a.m., the party officials, my party agents in Anambra State were calling to say they've not been able to access their agent tags in Anambra State. They were not given tags. So, Mr. Chairman, I want you to look at this. In Anambra State, as at 12 midnight, most of the party officials, like the agents of the parties, had not collected their agent tags. And then some of my people also called from Lagos, and then some called from Kano, some called from Benin. So we were receiving calls. It was like situational. And then the information management of INEC should also be looked at. Because as at 2 a.m., one of your commissioners was still insisting that the election will hold. That they were meeting, I read all that online, and that the election will go on. Only for us to get additional information as at 2:35 or 2:40 thereabout that the election had been shifted. Then, then the second point, also look at the PVC distribution, like in Lagos State, for instance. Lagos State is a very critical area. Areas like Amu Odofe, like Ojo area, like Ajaromi, like Lekki, a whole lot of people from different sides of the country have not been able to access their PVCs as at yesterday. There were numerous complaints about that. They've not been able to access it. And you go there, what's your name? They look at the card. Okay, come to 5 days after. They look at your name and they, no, come tomorrow or go to the other side. So the Festac area, Amuodof area, Ojo area, Alaba area, and towards where you have Lasso. most of the people in those areas have not been able to access their PVC. So, Mr. Chairman, I will want you to look at that. We are not very happy with what has happened. Yes, it has caused us upset, but you are inviting us to explain the situation. We also understand it, but like my colleagues have said, the resources deployed are just too much to be factored. Yes, but what can we? It is better we get it right. It is better we do it the right way. I thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ron. Last for this round. Yes, sir.
My name is Shitu Muhammad Kabir, and I want to raise, I want us to tell ourselves the truth here, Mr. Chairman. While Mr. Chairman was reading his speech here, he told us that there will be no staggered election, and that is pregnant. It's pregnant because already there are proponents of interim government, and we are already driving ourselves into interim government. Today, there's reason why today we don't hold this election. And you are saying there will be no staggered election in Africa. If you look at the history of African elections, it has been staggered election. Even the recent Angola, after 38 years, we are celebrating that victory there. Today, they staggered their election, and that's why we are celebrating after 38 years of electioneering there. Now, in Nigeria, you are telling us there will be no staggered election. If you don't stagger this election, there are natural occurrences. We are Africa. Roads are bad. Bridge can be broken. And you could not get to only probably 6 local governments in the whole country. Are you going to tell us that because of those 6 or a state that you cannot distribute material to, you will now postpone election again and again and again, and we get to where Constitution stipulated that election must be held on that time, and you could not hold that election, and you could not stagger the election in order to hold it. So for us, we believe that we as a country and as leaders, we must always tell ourselves the truth. We must be able to tell us there must be a staggered election. You must consider a staggered election. We shouldn't stay here and start telling ourselves that there will be no staggered election. I want to ask you this question, Mr. Chairman. If there are natural occurrences and you cannot deploy material to 1 or 2 local government or states, are you telling us that you still postpone the election even when the Constitution is already giving us the last date of the election? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there are enough questions for the chairman to respond to. Maybe I'll just take the lady last. The lady there. I didn't hear from a lady this time around. The lady, please. Women Radio.
Professor Yakubu, this is Tonwo Kewale Shunaya from Women Radio, the only radio station dedicated to women in Nigeria. Today would have been a very good day for Nigerians, but it's a very sad day and it's disheartening for Nigerians. I'd like to commend only Nigerians for being peaceful, because we're all stakeholders in the entity of Nigeria. Commendation should go to Nigerians, not to anybody else. My question, how can you reassure Nigerian women and girls who are eligible to vote to still have confidence in the commission? And when the day comes for them to go out with no fear of intimidation to exercise their voting rights? I'm still very proudly Nigerian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the chairman should respond to this set of questions, and then we'll come back to take some more. Honorable Chairman, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, each and everyone. The chairman of the YDP, the Young Democratic Party, asked a couple of questions. That the Commission should apologize to Nigerians for the postponement of the elections. I think it's just a matter of which adjective you use. In the last paragraph of my statement, I think I've done so without using exactly the same adjective that you use. But it amounts to the same thing. First and foremost, we are public officers, accountable to the Nigerian people, And our first responsibility is the protection of the public interest. And we take that responsibility seriously. I said so on my behalf as chairman and on behalf of the commissioners. We regret what happened yesterday or early this morning. Will campaign resume? Campaigns closed at midnight on Thursday last week. And for the period that remains, campaigns will remain closed. All the other processes as provided for in the main timetable and schedule of activities will remain in force, including the collection of PVCs. Remember, we promised that we are going to give you the complete breakdown of the number of PVCs collected and then mop up and warehouse the uncollected PVCs in the central bank until after the elections, when collection of the cards will resume, as well as the registration of new voters. So for what remains is for us to take the 6 steps I outlined in my written statement so that we conclude these elections on Saturday. Chairman APC, why did the commission have to wait until 2 in the morning to make a statement? Until close to 2 in the morning, we were still confident that elections will hold. For 3 days, since Wednesday, many of the commissioners, including myself, have virtually been sleeping at the Abuja airport. We mobilized all national assets to ensure that we deliver what remains of electoral logistics to locations and to conduct the elections. But unfortunately, we couldn't continue with the elections the way elections are supposed to be conducted. And therefore, we took the bold decision of making the statement that we did. But we were there at the airport with all the people that can provide any support that you can imagine, including contact with private airlines to get cargo airplanes that can deliver electoral logistics to locations. But as I said, after the 2015 general elections, this nation needs a conversation on the management of elections. We'll come back to it big time. Presidential candidate, National Conscience Party, intelligence unit against saboteurs. Let me just say noted. Then you talked about the imperative of consultation. National chairman and presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party. On this core, I also say noted. Chairman UDP, the issue of accreditation of party agents. I've taken note of that one as well, but I also hope that the UDP was one of the parties that submitted the list of agents for the 2019 general elections in good time to our electoral officers. The law requires you to submit the names 2 weeks to the election and to the electoral officers at the local government level, along with the passport photographs of the agents so that we can accredit them. Unfortunately, many of the parties either submitted late hour or did not even submit at all. Out of the 93 political parties contesting in the presidential election, as at last week, yesterday, actually as at yesterday, Friday, only 36 parties have forwarded the names of their agents for presidential collation. And this is supposed to have been done much earlier. PVCs in Lagos. I will link up with you, Chairman UDP, to find information on the specific locations that you talked about, and then we see what happens with the PVCs in those areas. Chairman Abda, how can INEC rule out the possibility of conducting staggered elections? I think your reference to natural disaster does not neatly fall into the category of staggered elections. In fact, there are staggered elections in Nigeria. On the 9th of March, we'll conduct governorship and state assembly elections but the governorship elections will only be held in 29 states of the Federation instead of 36. Reason, governorship elections in 7 states are conducted off-season, and therefore, if you like, they are staggered. But if you start an election and there is a violence or disruption of the process, Section 26 of the Electoral Act cures that process. It's very clear as to what to do in the event of violence or natural disaster. Section 53 of the Electoral Act is also very clear as to what the Commission should do in the event of overvoting. So I think the issue of violence leading to the inability of the Commission to conduct elections is already taken care of by the Electoral Act. So it doesn't neatly fall into the category of staggered elections. So Naya, what can I do to reassure women and girls to still have confidence in INEC and in the electoral process? I want to say this not just because I'm chairman of INEC. It's just a position of temporary position of privilege. If you look at the conduct of elections and the behavior of the Electoral Commission since 2010, you will agree with me that INEC is perhaps the most improved public service institution in Nigeria today. Just look at the kind of elections that were conducted before 2010 and the kind of election that we are conducting today. Look at the openness of the process. So we'll continue to do what we can to encourage, but this is not a responsibility that should be left to INEC alone. INEC is what it is on the account of the support it enjoys from citizens. We do what we can under the provisions of the law, but citizens also have a responsibility to support the Commission. Take voter education and publicity, which is one of the areas of mobilizing citizens to support the process. INEC has its own limitations. The good thing is that political parties and others are also involved in voter mobilization, which is not a responsibility that INEC can perform. Responsibility for voter mobilization belongs to other entities, while we focus on voter education and sensitization. We'll do whatever we can to ensure inclusion, including the full participation of women and girls. I've said it before and I would like to say it again, that the 2019 general elections is going to be the election of the young people, including women and girls above the age of 18. These are the people eligible to register and to participate in the process, simply because of some of the actions that we have taken. For the first time, we organized the campus outreach. And it was tremendous success in all the 6 geopolitical zones, mobilizing young people to go and register. As a result of which, out of the 84 million registered voters in Nigeria today, 22.3 million are young people. But if we take young people between the ages of 18 and 35, they constitute over 51% of the registered voters in Nigeria. We'll continue to do whatever we can to ensure the inclusion of young people in the electoral process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's come to this side of the hall. Black, the gentleman in hat. I recognize you, the lady, yes. Yeah. Clement Wanko, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Clement Wanko, the convener of the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. 2 quick issues. First is that the Nigerian people obviously are very, very disappointed with what has happened. But certainly I think that whatever the disappointment is and whatever the anger is amongst Nigerians, the key thing looking ahead is to ask Nigerians to translate that into a determination to vote on the new date that INEC has set. I think that people have been very mobilized for these elections. A lot have traveled to different parts of the country, and all in an attempt to make sure that they vote. I will, on behalf of the Nigeria civil society situation, urge Nigerians to be patient with INEC, not because they should not be angry, but because they need to cast their votes and they need to express themselves. Voting is something that has become increasingly very, very important for Nigerians. And I think this is perhaps one of the most mobilized Nigerian electorate in recent times. So we urge Nigerians to please be patient with the situation and set to cast their votes. Secondly, the Independent National Electoral Commission is an independent body recognized under the Constitution. We might have challenges with the decisions that have been made. We might have challenges with the circumstances that we're in, but we must recognize that the Independent National Electoral Commission is a body recognized under the Constitution with powers to run our elections, and this must be respected by all persons. Whatever we do, we must not undermine the independence and integrity of the election management body, INEC, in this country. So we urge all of the parties, we urge every stakeholder involved in this process that whatever you do, were you to tamper with the independence of INEC, you will be destroying the basis of our democracy in this country. Thirdly, INEC needs, the chairman has made a very important comment, and that comment relates to the sanctity of election materials. There are different stages that these election materials have traveled across the country. In some states, it has not been tampered with beyond a certain level. The INEC chairman needs to confirm to us that these materials, where they have been tampered with, must be retrieved, and new materials that are sufficiently protected and untampered with are available for the elections. I think that the point, because from last night we're getting reports that materials had in fact begun to travel right down to some levels, whereas in some places it had not even left the beginning stages. So I think that INEC needs to take every step to assure Nigerians that where these materials have been exposed to mishandling or indeed exposed to partisan handling, that these materials are retrieved and we receive assurances that they would be protected in order to ensure that we have a proper election.
Thank you very much.
On the date. Thank you.
The next gentleman, glasses.
My name is Christian Ogodo, Arise Media Group. Mr. Chairman, in your about 4 years on the saddle, along with your team, you have conducted state governorship elections which have mostly been inconclusive. Will next week's election, if it turns out to be inconclusive, are you prepared for that? What alternate plans do you have? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the gentleman in heart. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Danjuma Ali Muhammad. I'm the national chairman of the Movement for the Restoration and Defense of Democracy, MRDD. Before now, we have been concerned about possible external interference with the INEC. The issue has always been, is INEC truly independent, or is INEC being surreptitiously controlled by the powers that be? From what is happening here today, I think we thank God that even the ruling party is one of the parties that are complaining, and this attests to some extent to the independency of INEC. Now the problem is that from all indication, it is not an external problem, but an internal problem of INEC. The case that is established that has brought us to this situation today is about internal sabotage. I want to ask the INEC chairman, are you confident with the loyalty of your staffs? How genuine and loyal are your contractors? These two elements certainly must have played critical roles in what has gotten us here today, in making the elections impossible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me take from the lady in the middle, please. This way, middle.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ukemere Tukwa, and I'm with Amplified Media. A point of correction to whom it may concern. Voters are the real key players here. And as we have seen in the elections, my concerns are about the Nigerians in diaspora. Do their votes actually count? They have come all this way, and some of them are stranded. Some of them will leave. Are their votes valid? And food for thought. We should bear in mind that we are majorly the face of Africa to the world. So we should exercise caution when we actually address things like the postponement of the election, because we are the face of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The gentleman in glasses.
Hello, sir. Mr. Chairman, my name is Peter Okwocha. I work for the BBC. You've had 4 years to organize these elections. You failed to do that. What makes you think you can do it in just 1 week? Thank you.
Okay. Red cap.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Chief Perry Opara, National Chairman, National Unity Party. Happy day in Nigeria. Most people are frustrated. Most of them have left some places to another location for the mere reason that they want to participate. I want to extract firm commitment from the community, Nigerians in diaspora, Nigerians at home, and the media are watching. We want to confirm if there will not be another postponement, if 23rd of February is sacrosanct. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a lady. Any lady with a question? Okay, let's go to the lady over there, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lizzie Chikpi. I write for Other Paper Nigeria. Yes, my question is, I'm a bit concerned as regards to the situation of the electorate that will be going out to vote the coming week. Because going by what INEC has said, in less than 1 week, INEC facilities have been attacked. Yet, a lot of money was earmarked for the security as it concerns the INEC budget. Over 700 million was earmarked for the security agencies. And I'm wondering, knowing very well that this is not the first time INEC facilities will be attacked whenever elections hold in this country, why didn't INEC put measures in place in terms of security to guard their facilities? And how is INEC going to assure us today that the security men are prepared to provide security for Nigerians and the international observers who will be participating in this election in the coming weeks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think these are enough questions for the chairman to respond to.
Just clarification.
Yes, you want the clarification
yes,
as to campaigning. I've gotten the message. I'll pass it on. Just as to campaigns, right?
Yeah, but let me make the point. I'm here with the microphone.
Yes, but sorry, sir. You've already had one chance. Let's respond and then let's get...
Mr. Chairman, I seek your permission to seek a clarification on the issue of no campaigning for the week next week. Now, Mr. Chairman, you see that people have been demobilized by the act of this election. there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of disappointment. I think it is right for the political parties to help and ginger Nigerians to come out again, to forgo what they are going to do next week and come out again. I don't think it would be right for us to have a week of silence in the event of a very massive disappointment in the country. We are totally for elections. We are for peaceful elections, and that is why we have taken in our stride the great losses we've incurred. We didn't want to enter into the theatrics of blaming the chairman. But we think that you should reconsider your position and that there must be campaigning. People must continue to get Nigerians to come out and vote in the 48 weeks.
Honorable Chairman, sir, maybe you want to respond to those questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Clem, representing the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. It is always very important to assure and reassure citizens in times like this and to instill public confidence and trust in the process and to keep the peace. You asked about the sanctity of the election materials and the need to reassure Nigerians that the materials are safe. Yes, we deployed some of the materials we received, but there are no reports that any of the materials were used in the election, for the election. We will audit, and then, as I said in my speech, we'll come out clean if there is any such tampering with the materials. The sanctity of the process is important, so too is the sanctity of the materials used for the election. And we are committed to protecting both the process and the material. Thank you, Clem. Christian from Arise, that we conducted mostly inconclusive governorship elections. Well, an inconclusive election is an election in which no winner emerges on first ballot. So it goes to the second ballot. And I've never had anyone say we have concluded an inconclusive or have concluded an election in the second round outside the provisions of the law. But statistically speaking, I think the figures you read out are wrong in the sense that we didn't conduct most of the elections inconclusively. We conducted 7 governorship elections off-season, out of which only 2 were declared inconclusive, meaning that no winner emerged rightly on first ballot. But you recall that of the 7 elections we conducted, the 2 that were declared inconclusive were in Kogi and Bayelsa. But the governorship election in Edo, Ondo, Anambra, Ekiti, and Oshun were not that inconclusive. Yes, Oshun, yes, because of Oshun too. But if you look at 7 elections we conducted, not many of them are, not the majority are inconclusive. Danjuma, internal problem of INEC sabotage of process, staff and vendors genuine. Well, so far, I've received no evidence of internal or external sabotage. But we are not naive. We'll keep our eyes open and we'll deal with the situation as it arises. Nigerians in the diaspora, do their votes count? Are their votes valid? Every legitimate vote counts. Every legitimate vote counts. Commendable that Nigerians living outside the country, in spite of the absence of diaspora voting, still come back to the country and vote. I want to say that INEC strength is the law. The law now says that you vote where you are registered, and you cannot be registered outside the shores of the country. But we submitted a proposal to the National Assembly to allow for 2 categories of citizens to vote outside the country. Nigerian citizens in foreign service or military service overseas, like the diplomatic community, as well are those on military service overseas or any other legitimate service outside the country. This is called OCV, out-of-country voting. They are citizens but are not resident in another country. Then you have the diaspora voting. Diaspora voting here means Nigerians resident outside the country who vote in elections. We are committed to that, and I want to tell you that perhaps in not too distant future, you will be able to vote where you are without having to come back to Nigeria and vote. We submitted a proposal to the National Assembly. We hope that the enabling laws will be amended. We have even produced what we can conveniently call draft guidelines for OCV, out-of-country voting, and diaspora voting as well. We welcome this new innovation, and we look forward to the day when Nigerians living in diaspora will also represent other Nigerians living in diaspora in our national parliament, because this is what happens elsewhere. Citizens not only vote, but they also represent other citizens in their national parliaments. We have cooperated and worked with several countries in our sub-region which have the system of diaspora voting for their own citizens within Nigeria, including making provision of some of our ballot boxes and voting cubicles for diaspora voting, and will continue to do so. Danjuma, I think I've responded to the question asked and the question on diaspora. Peter Okocha, that the Commission failed to organize an election in 4 years. What guarantee is there that the election can be organized in 1 week? I'm not sure that there is any nation that organizes its election in 1 week. I stand to be corrected, but I'm unsure. So what we are going to do in the next 1 week is not to organize an election afresh, but to address the challenges that arose from organizing the election. Every election is different. Every election comes with its own peculiar challenges, and the Electoral Commission must continue to rise to these challenges. But the most important thing for me is, are we operating within the confines of the law, or that we have strayed outside the confines of the law? So we'll continue to organize good elections. This is our commitment. But what we are going to do next week doesn't amount to organizing or conducting an election within a week. And I hope that Peter Okocha from the BBC will be here in the next 1 week, a little more, to cover the outcome of our 2019 general elections. The choice is in the hands of Nigerians. Chairman NUP, is 23rd February sacrosanct? Without equivocation, it is. And this is our commitment to Nigerians. Lizzie, attack on INEC facilities. Unfortunately, you said that this is the first time. So this is not the first time it has happened before. You are right. Between the 2015 general elections and some of the off-season elections we have conducted, 13 offices of the Commission were burnt down as a result of arson and politically related violence. 13 of our 774 local government offices were actually burnt down, and many other facilities and assets of the Commission. So we'll continue to work with the security agencies to protect these assets, and as well as the protection of the staff of the Commission, whether they are regular staff or ad hoc that we engage for election duty. Can political parties go into the election next week in silence if campaign is not allowed? My simple answer to this question is, and the person who asked the question should know as a politician, that no political actors are silent. Thank you.
Honorable Chairman, National Commissioners, party leaders, leaders of CSO, I'd like to thank you very much. I'm afraid that is all we can take. We scheduled this briefing for 2 hours, and as the chairman said earlier, him and the commissioners have to get to the airport. We apologize to those who could not take your questions and your comments, our sincere apologies, please. There will be many more opportunities for several briefings in the next few days. So on behalf of the Commission, I'd like to say thank you very much for honoring our invitation, even under such short notice and difficult circumstances. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, studio. It has been a very tasking moment here at the International Conference Center in Abuja. Different shades of opinion from party leaders, the diplomatic corps, and also the INEC. But at the end of it all, it ended in peace. And let me talk to some of those that have just participated in the conversation. Sir, let's briefly hear from you. Let's briefly hear from you. You are one of those that. Thank you so much. Let's briefly hear from you.
Yes, sir.
How do you see the outcome of the meeting?
Well, so far so good. Nigerians are very patient people. We have no choice. We have to respect. Nigerians are very patient people. We have to accept it as it is. It's painful. It's hurting. But what can we do? For peace to reign and for the country to move forward, we just have to do the needful and respect the wishes of INEC as it is. It's painful. It hurts, like everybody says, but we have to move forward.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, sir, let's also hear from you.
Yes, Moshood Olatunji. Basically, I believe INEC did brilliantly. I mean, they've really tried in organizing themselves. And we as Nigerians have to realize something. There's 180 million of us. It is an impossible task to expect any organization to actually conduct an election without our massive help. And so far, as Nigerians, we've really helped, and we have to continue. And we have to continue to help the country by a simple point that I believe would help us. Like Nigeria, you need to understand Nigeria from the point of view of you are in love with someone. You don't love someone for 2 days or for 3 days. You love them through the bad times and the good times. So we hope Nigerians will really step up. Do not allow party politics and violence to come into the play. Everybody should be calm. INEC has done a good job so far, and the job would come and pay us now and in the future. And by the next time, you will have a better INEC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Femi Okewo, that is where we draw the curtain on this 2019 postponement of the elections a week ahead, and the meeting has just been held. Different shades of opinion, as I said earlier, but thank God it ended in harmony. They are all agreed. INEC has worked out 6 points to ensure that the elections on Saturday are peaceful, and the campaigns will not going to continue anymore. Collection of PVCs will not also continue, because at the end of the day, they have to declare the uncollected number of PVCs, as the INEC chairman said. So that is the much we can bring to you from the venue of the stakeholders meeting on the postponement of the 2019 general elections week ahead. Thank you, Femi. Till then.
Very much, Mayor. It's been a very illuminating session there, helping us to understand the nitty-gritty of the circumstances that brought us this way. We're back in the studio. Thank you, you two viewers, for the interest in the situation Nigeria is now, in our electoral situation. Here in the studio, we still have Jide Ojo, public analyst, who is been monitoring, and some of the issues he has raised has actually been raised by a number of the participants. We also have Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu, who is been steadfast with us here. Now, let's start this session of analyzing the INEC's position and the series of information, loads of information we have, by leaving it open to you. What are the key areas that you can say you have benefited from this session?
First and foremost, I think it was a very frank discussions. Yeah. The party chairman, the electoral stakeholders, including the accredited observers, did not mind word about how they felt about the situation. And in fact, somebody was even calling for some measure of compensation that those who want to travel back from their homes should get 50% rebate.
Oh, he was talking about
persons with disability.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a good enough, but that will be corporate social responsibility of those transport companies.
Yes.
It cannot be borne by the INEC. The point is that everybody has spoken very clear, frankly. You see, disagreement does not mean that you hate or you despise or you want something not to succeed. It's about our, some people are quick-tempered, some people are broad-minded, but we are all humans, first and foremost. The point is, the takeaway, one key takeaway is that INEC chairman has said that next Saturday is sacrosanct, and we have to hold him to account on that. He has also said that the vast logistic will be done in the presence of everybody. He's actually heading to the airport to be sure that all sensitive materials are retrieved and banked with the central back to the central bank vault. He has given timeline within which all the pre-election activity for the next 1 week will happen. So it is for you and I, media, civil society, political parties and candidates to oversight INEC, to say that, okay, we have our representative here and there. This is what they are reporting to us. This is scope for comfort. We don't want a repeat. So give the commission a benefit of doubt. We have no institution that can conduct election. And like many of the stakeholders said, it's time for us to work assiduously, join hands together to ensure that this election succeed, because election of leaders for the next 4 years is very critical to moving the country forward, even in terms of national development. So it is very good that this stakeholders meeting has held. We have spoken our minds, both here and over there, including those who were asking for apology, and they got something. They got apology, and I think we are ready. We have already forgiven INEC. Okay. It is for us to now have better elections next week.
Abdul Rahman, what are the striking things for you from this stakeholders meeting?
Well, the first for me is the fact that INEC's independence came out clearly.
Oh, great.
It's something that we've been craving for, we've been asking for. For the fact that the president said he was deeply disappointed because he never knew it would be postponed speaks volumes. To some other persons, it is a sign of failure or weakness on the part of the president that is not aware. But INEC is an independent body, saddled with responsibilities to conduct election. And that brings me to the part that made impact on me when the INEC chairman said, we take full responsibility. For whatever has happened, it is our sole responsibility. Moving forward, those persons, I want to make a statement that we need to underline. Those persons that orchestrated, that funded the removal of Amina Zakari, who has conducted more than 3 off-season elections without any issues in terms of logistics, which formed the basis upon which she was appointed based on her competence. And then she was replaced by another person. And that person could not give us the logistics that we wanted to be able to conduct this election. I hope they will have the heart and the boldness to also own up and apologize to Nigerians.
But was her last appointment on logistics, or
yes,
was
she
it
was
on
she was supposed to chair
collation center?
No, she was supposed to chair that. Okay. She was supposed to chair that. So now what has come out clearly is this, that we should not sacrifice competence on the altar of some flimsy excuses that will not assist this nation.
Okay.
The other thing that has come out of this very particular interaction for me is the fact that most of the political parties operated as equals. There is no preference.
Yeah.
There is no bullying. There is no sort of arrogance with which the ruling party will always brag in Nigeria. So for me, overall, there are three critical lessons for me. One, as I said earlier, on the independence of INEC, which means that INEC is responsible, as Professor Yakubu has owned up, and that whatever has happened, it is INEC, and we will continue to hold INEC accountable. Going forward, we know that nobody is pushing INEC to act based on what he has said.
It is, in addition to that,
yes,
he also clearly said this is not a security matter.
Yes, yes, he said it is not security, it is not anything else but logistics issues. And we are saying that going forward, we should be able to learn from lessons, from experiences. And that, for me, are key things that is showing that our democracy is maturing, and that INEC is a thinking institution, and that and I have said it earlier on, for INEC to even take that decision, to even say, look, however bad it is, we know that we cannot proceed, and we will not set Nigeria ablaze, and we are going to take all the blames, and Nigerians have been blaming INEC. A lot of us, we've been saying it, and we've expressed our grievances. What we want now is a credible election that will certify all the requirements of the law, that will meet international standards. So going forward, not only the civil society organizations, the media houses, in our churches, in our mosques, on the street, we should be committed to ensuring that all the pre-election, the activities leading to delivery, in terms of the reconfiguration of the card readers, the reverse logistics, as given, the timetable as given, we should follow it religiously and ensure that not less than the day he said they are going to finish, which is on Friday, before the election, all of those logistics are in place for the election.
Now, thank you very much for those areas of observation. But let's begin to pick one or two other key areas. It emerged there that INEC is really overburdened with responsibilities. But INEC chairman himself said that they are overburdened by court cases, including court orders that came, part of which came in the last week. Yesterday, Friday,
actually.
Exactly. Can we do anything about that on the immediate run?
It's rather unfortunate. INEC is not the one that conducted the party primaries. There were crisis reading, rancorous, where internal democracy was observed in breach. And you could see all of them sanctimony, pontificating,
making it look as if
they are perfect.
Yes,
they had their own primaries. Many of them postponed their primaries up to 5-7 times. But they are now making, a mockery of INEC because they have seen a scapegoat. They created the part of the problem for INEC.
644 cases involving INEC.
In which 644 pre-election
matters,
dispute petitions, in which INEC has been joined. Now, just imagine, INEC is not in any way responsible for the conduct of those party primaries. It was done as internal affairs of the parties. But look at the overwhelming involvement. Look at the huge cost to even the commission. Because even though it's not the plaintiff, not the defendant, it is being joined because it's the one that is the empire.
Carry out the instructions, the orders of the court.
Now, I think our law courts, and the good thing for me is that there is now a timeline for pre-election matter to be disposed of. It's just that, unfortunately, courts are still giving decisions one way or the other, particularly for INEC.
Pre-election matters don't have a timeline.
From the last constitutional amendment that was signed last year, there is now the same pre-election, the timeline for pre-election matter to be disposed of, just like post-election matter. It's just that the pre-election matters will now have, you have to file your cases 14 days after the then 180 days at the trial court, that's High Court, of Federal Court, then 60 days are Court of Appeal, 60 days are Supreme Court. Unlike the situation we had in which Isaac Alpha was just being declared as the winner of Kogi East senatorial election, just last week. And he's going to leave office alongside with his colleagues if he gets sworn in on maybe June 9 or whenever the National Assembly ends. But the problem is now, INEC is being dragged here and there, and is not able to focus primarily on the conduct of election. But again, we need to hurry very slowly. As we call for unbundling of INEC, we are also creating a bigger bureaucracy that can impact negatively on the efficiency of the commission. For instance, if we have a separate political party registration and regulatory commission, if we have a separate voter registration commission, if we have electoral offences commission, all of their activities will still have to be implemented by the INEC. So if they don't perform their own work professionally, it will impact negatively on INEC. It is good that INEC has oversight of all of what is happening. The one that everybody is unanimous on is the Electoral Offences Commission, that if it is established, it can send the right signal in terms of punishment, in terms of arrest, investigation, and punishment of electoral offenders.
Now, Abdurrahman, let's look at one very delightful news too that some of you know, but which is not known to Nigerians. The allegations have been flying around that people have tom-printed ballot papers and all that. Now we know that the card readers are configured to a particular area. Particular date of election. So it's configured to Saturday.
But you see, when things like that continue to fly on the cyber space, people that are doing that have lost touch with the innovations that have taken place in INEC. Most of the innovations that have taken place in INEC will not even permit the smuggling in of already tom-printed ballot papers, because at the end of the collation and the counting, once the total votes declared exceed the total number of accredited voters that cast their votes, automatically that unit is cancelled. So the configuration is just to reinforce the fact that the processes have been refined to the extent that things like smuggling in ballot papers will not be easy as it used to be. So INEC, and that is why I refer to INEC as a learning institution, because what has happened over time is that there is a refinement of whatever achievement. So there is steady upping of significant improvement that has been achieved. And where any society you have that happening within institutions of governance, the chances are that those governance institutions will deliver. And that is the main reason that some of us are relaxed. And then by the time we speak, people thought, okay, maybe we are praising INEC unduly. When INEC was not performing, we are at the forefront of crucifying INEC. And when we have INEC that was willing to listen to stakeholders and then improve the process, we work together collectively with Professor YIAGA, and then we improve the process. And now that the process has been taken to the next level, despite the challenges, we are equally there to point out here and there what needed to be done. And that is what we are doing.
I feel like we're actually going to end this session. It's been a very long and session for us, but an educating session too. I feel like saying that all is well that ends well, but that saying would only affect today. Today started as one of the saddest days in Nigeria, but the day is ending on a stage of no hope for the country, in spite of the very sad way it started by the postponement of the election. The level of education in which Nigerians have spoken, the way political parties have spoken, the way stakeholders have spoken, and the way our analysts have been able to bring these things closer to you gives us hope that on the immediate run, the 23rd of February would be a day that would eventually usher in a successful election. And moving on from there, Nigeria will learn from its past. Thank you very much for being faithful to this channel, to the Nigerian Television Authority, that has, through this session, brought you the happenings for the 2019 general elections. Of course, the Nigerian studios for Nigeria Decide Studios will reopen again to begin to look at happenings for the eventual conduct of the presidential and National Assembly elections on the 23rd, as it has been rescheduled, and on the 9th for governors and state assemblies of March, as that too has been rescheduled. Thank you once again, and that marks the end. On behalf of the Nigerian Television Authority, we want to say have a nice day.